Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
We were sleeping. I've been sleeping. I've been turning away from a truth I wanted not to face. There is a wound that won't heal at the center of the galaxy. There is a darkness reaching like rust into everything around us. We let it grow, and now it's here.
How many men have you killed, my lord?
I don't know.
50? 100? Countless.
Countless has a nice ring to it.
And how many lives have you saved?
500,000. Population of King's Landing. Tell me if your precious Randy commanded you to kill your own father and stand by while thousands of men, women, children burned alive, would you have done it? Would you have kept your oath then?
Our time has come. We prepared. We grew stronger. While you rested in your cradle of power, you were trusted to lead the Republic. But you were deceived. You assumed no force could challenge you. And now, finally, we have returned.
The visions are clear now. I see possible futures all at once. Our enemies are all around us. And in so many futures they prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through.
It's not a prophecy. It's a story that you keep telling, but it's not their story, it's yours. They deserve to be led by one of their own. What your people did to this world is heartbreaking.
We gave them something to hope for.
That's not hope!
We have survived by hiding from them, by running from them. But they are the gatekeepers. They are guarding all the doors, they are holding all the keys, which means that sooner or later, someone is going to have to fight them.
I wish none of this had happened.
So do all who live to see such time, but that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us.
Forgive me. I did not see. I have failed you all.
You forbade me. Captain Honor, I do not know what strength is like that. But I swear to you, I will not let the White City fall. Our people fail. Our people. Our people.
I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. And now it begins.
No. Now it ends.
What's up, guys? Welcome to The Narrative, episode 46, Pincer Paradox. Almost named it Sovereign Pincer, but I decided that we might talk about pincers that are not directly Sovereign Alliance related as well. We also may not do anything we plan to do, which is something that is at risk of happening, mostly because of my guest. I'm always extremely on target, over the target, Luke Skywalker-esque during the trench run. I don't meander. I don't ever get drawn off course. So I'm going to try to do that tonight. We'll see what happens with this guy that I'm going to have to deal with. But yeah, we're going to talk about pincers. And this is something we talk about a lot, especially me and my guest tonight, the ghost of Base Patrick Henry. We talk about pincers all the time, maybe to the point where the term gets overused, or not so much overused, but I've thought this with some recent terms that we use, especially on the back of GART. We don't often we don't always take a step back and really talk about what do we mean by pincers. Everybody in this audience is probably aware of the sovereign alliance theory that I've been talking about for years, and various other theories of alliances and things not being exactly what they appear. Ghost talks about that all the time on his shows as well. But pincer is an intentional term, right? It means that it's not only an alliance, it's a strategy and a technique. And I believe that it's going on multiple theaters, both kinetic, political, financial. We've talked about some of that stuff on recent shows. The multipolar pincer, I think, is going on between Trump and China. But we're going to try to hit a few of these tonight. We'll see how many we get through. Before that, tonight's show is brought to you by a couple of our regulars, including the Pillow Man himself, who is executing a pincer technique against shitty pillows.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back in stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queens $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Thanks, Mike. I think I will do that. You guys should get My Pillow stuff. It's great. It's great stuff. Everybody at Badlands, they pretty much have houses made out of pillows, discount pillows, affordable pillows, and they're quite good. And we're also brought to you tonight by our own Jessica and her brand All Good. Make self-care great again with All Good by Jessica Storm. This holiday season, treat your hair to the #1 bestseller, Tallow Hair Mask, Deep Hydration Zero Junk. While you're shopping, grab the new drops, Tallow Beard Balm, Tamed Hair Serum, and Whipped Tallow in 3 subtle scents you'll love, all handcrafted in small batches from Clearwater, Florida, delivered to you in glass jars, so it's all good inside and out. No toxins, parabens, sulfates, BPAs, or PFAs, no BS, simple organic ingredients with purpose. Shopping for someone else, grab some e-gift cards and let them choose. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/allgood. Use the promo code Badlands to snag a discount and support Badlands Media in the process. That's badlandsmedia.tv/allgood. Promo code Badlands. And I don't use tallow hair masks. I mean, my hair is naturally this suave. But Mrs. Bright does. She kind of gets that. She gets a bit frizzy. And, you know, it seems like she could really use it. But it does come in glass jars, I can confirm that. And Mrs. Bright seems to like the stuff. We also like Jessica. So grab it if you're into that. Otherwise, all right. You've rambled long enough, Ghost. I guess it's time to bring you in. So, how's it going, man, first of all?
What's up? It's going well. How are you?
Not too bad. Your house is starting to get back into the Macaulay Culkin sort of vibes that we're looking for.
Yeah, we went ahead and put up the Christmas tree. I think it was yesterday.
That is messed up. It's really messed up that you did that.
Yeah, well, it's because with 3 kids, everything takes like 5 times as long as you think it's going to take. And so normally, like, my wife loves to decorate, as you can probably gather. And so she used to like set aside like a day or, you know, like a Saturday or an entire weekend where she would just decorate the whole house and she would just get into it. Like, she loves it.
Yeah.
But now that's impossible. Like, we can't just set aside a weekend because there's just, you know, even if we didn't have the kids, like, a million things they have to do, but it's just, you know, them getting in the way, them physically standing in front of you when you're trying to do something. So yeah, like, I mean, it took us like 2 hours to put up the tree where normally it would have taken us like 30 minutes. So
I only have one small human so far, but I can see now, like, if you just extrapolate that out, exactly how that can happen, and especially a boy. I don't have any girls. Obviously, my first one is a boy, but you now have a boy. And is that a different type of chaos in your experience?
Oh, 100%. I like there's a bunch of crown in the room back there. That's the kids' playroom. There's like a bunch of crown on the wall. Because of him. Like my girls will sit there and like color for like 2 hours on their paper. They'll never draw on anything but the paper. And then he just immediately walks up to the crown and just starts like coloring on the wall, and then looks back and laughs at you and knows while he's doing it, he's like, I'm doing this because I know that you don't want me to do it. Like that's why he's doing it. It's not because, he knows the paper's right there and he knows how to use the paper and he knows how to draw on the paper and hold the paper and be like, look what I did. Right.
Yeah.
But he knows that if he draws on the wall, it's going to get a rise out of one of us, and then he'll throw the crown there and laugh and run away as he does it. And I'm like, you little shit. And
he's
I
trying to become ungovernable.
Yes, he's already ungovernable. When I realized, I'm like, wow, okay, well, that was probably me 35 years ago. That was probably me. I was like, wow, was I really that bad? And my parents were like, dude, you were
I would assume.
My uncles were like, dude, we were way worse. Way worse.
I could imagine that. You seem like a go in a direction and just not stop going in a direction. My brand of mischief, I think, was a little different, but it was bad as well. But I think I was always trying to get into something, like sneakily. I don't really know if you'd be as sneaky, but it was usually that if I was getting into something, if nobody knew where I was for a little while, I was climbing something. Yeah,
that was me. It's like, oh, he's been missing for more than 20 minutes. It's like, you probably go find him. Whereas, like, and then once I got older, it was like, oh, he's been missing for a few days. It's like he'll turn up. He'll turn up sometime. Like we don't need to worry about.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now in hindsight, I understand why my mom would just call the aunts, like, 2 weeks into the summer when I was 12, and just be like, "Where is he? I heard he was at this aunt's house," and they'd just figure out where I was and leave me alone. I do have a funny ghost anecdote from Cocoa Beach, and that was that Mrs. Bright and I and Baby Bright and Ghost rode together to go to dinner, and Mrs. Bright on the way back asked Ghost like how he liked Richmond or the Richmond area, and he proceeded to tell her all about the civil engineering of Richmond, Virginia, and something called the Fan. I did remember a lot of it. I thought it was interesting. But she had to crack up at it. She was like, it was interesting stuff. But at the end of all the civil engineering, she was like, so do you like it? And you were like, yeah, it's fine. as we got out of the car and headed toward the hotel. So it was we are our strengths and our weaknesses incarnate. So I appreciated the civil engineering. That may come up tonight. We have no idea.
Well, dude, if you ever go to Charlotte, Charlotte has like two downtown areas. So they have uptown and downtown. And I think it's called uptown is like the newer area where you have like literally you have high rises. And one of my friends lived in a suburban house, like a suburban neighborhood where his house backed up basically like a high rise. Like you went out in his backyard and there's like a 50-foot tower. I mean, it looks like it's in his backyard, but it's probably a few blocks away. But it's weird how the layouts of like cities evolve. Like Richmond is nice because it's like a total spectrum where you have like urban, and then it's like townhouses from like 200 years ago, and then it's like dense suburban, and then it's less dense suburban, and then you get like multi-acre suburban, and then you're just in the country. So it's like a nice gradual like get out of the city. Other places it's like you literally go from cow pastures to high rises within like a few hundred yards.
So it's funny because I wasn't planning to do Virginia civil engineering or zoning codes, but I was literally reading about it right before the show. So look at this shit. I mean, this is not really a narrative topic, but I would be so fucking mad. So the Virginia neighborhood shocked by massive home addition built for 3-generation family. Now, would you take a wild guess as to whether or not that 3-generation family is who white?
It's an Indian family. I've never heard this story before, but I can already tell you 1,000%.
Oh, I don't know. I just know that they are immigrants. So
I can probably even pinpoint like what kind of Indian they are, and I know this because I used to sell real estate, and this is all like I had all Indian clients at the very beginning because they would all the guys in my office would be like, hell no, I'm not dealing with this. Send it to Gordon, like he's low man on the totem pole, and they would negotiate, man. They'd be like, hey, I only work with you if you give me your commission, like, and I'm like, that's illegal. I can't do that. I'm sorry.
Negotiate is a very polite word for what Indians do. Lie, cheat, and steal is what I would use to describe Indians. And I've actually dealt with many of them in the combat sports world, oddly enough, in my role over there. Not in terms of fighting, but because they're not very good at fighting. That's one of the open secrets. But in terms of the leagues and how everything is run there and record keeping. And it's, I actually brought this up on a recent show. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just in a conversation at GART. But the thing that blew me away about Indians was not that they lie. Everybody lies. White people lie, black people lie, like people lie. It was that when you catch them lying, they blame you. They don't deny that they're lying. And that is something I've noticed about Indians. Like, if you're dealing with a Russian or an American, whatever, South American in particular, they will, like, if you get them, they'll either just stop interacting with you or, like, they'll freak out for some other reason, but they're like, yeah, you got me. Or they'll try to change the story. Whereas Indians are like, you motherfucker, just do the thing I asked you to do. And I'm like, well, I just caught you lying about the thing now. And they're like, yeah, I know. That's why I'm mad. So, that's just my experience.
So I know this is an Indian family because every single they would put me. This is 2010, the worst time to get into real estate. But I just graduated from college and couldn't get a job, and just fell into it. And so they'd go put me in like the new developments that the real estate company was developing. They put me in the new the new house, like the model home on a Sunday. Yeah. And I'd be lucky if anybody even came by because nobody was looking for a house at this point. The only people who came by were either people looking for decorating ideas or Indians. And the Indians, they always, when they would negotiate with the builders about building a new house, they'd go and they meet with them. You know, they have like the specs. You can get this house or this house or this house. And maybe there's a few little modifications you can make. You can bump out the kitchen 2 feet this way. You can whatever.
Right.
They'd be like, all right, here's what I want. I want 4 master suites because I have 3 children. And I want all, like, they're like 25 years old, 30-year-old children, and they're all going to live with me. And I had this happen like 4 times. And the builders were so desperate at the time, they would do it because they were, even though they weren't custom home builders, they were so desperate to build something that they would have their architect or whatever draw up a new house. But I had one guy at closing day, like we were closing. Like everything was done. It was like waited 30 days or whatever. And like to finalize everything, he said, all right, I also want the oak handrail in the foyer. And I was like, hell no. You are signing this piece of paper.
Courtney Leonard lives literally in the shadow
I didn't mean
of
to play that with audio. But yeah, this story, speaking of, was just, I mean, it's a little suburban story, but look at that. That's in a suburban neighborhood.
Yeah.
Look at this poor lady next to them.
Yep.
Like, you're just in the shadows, and apparently it's because it's a zoning loophole, some shit like that. But
so
it's amazing. They're just putting an apartment building there.
The thing you're going to fall into here is it like multifamily versus single family use.
Yeah.
Multifamily is, if you have like a quadplex, you're gonna lease out half of your house, like you're gonna Airbnb half of your house, and then you're gonna live in the other half. Technically, that's a commercial property. So you get into commercial versus residential, multifamily versus single family. Multifamily is commercial, single family is residential. Technically, this is probably a single family home because it's about
a multi-generational single family home. That's how they get away with it. But they're like, oh, we're going to change the ordinance or something. But anyway, it's just ridiculous. So that was a funny little tidbit.
I've spent so much of my life fighting those people to get like exceptions to like, oh, I want to do this with this house, like get creative, whatever. So all that stuff is very boring.
Literally 2 doors down from me, there is a, I believe, Brazilian family, and they have a house sort of in the front. Well, it's it's a property that goes back. So there's a long driveway, it goes back to this house. It's probably like a 1,400 square foot house, 1,200 square foot house, something like that. And behind the house is an old garage. And there's a lot of people over there all the time. And then we kept smelling last year like sewage. And then I kind of noticed, like, man, the septic truck has been over there a bunch of times. And my neighbor in between us, come to find out, there was like 2 families living in the main house, 2 families or a family living in the garage, like literally a garage for cars that they converted into some sort of living domain. And then they just like dug a pipe into an old septic tank that wasn't even approved. So they were having to get it pumped like every month. And I don't know if anything got done with that, but anyway, this is the shit we're dealing with. It's kind of funny. Like the Trump era, which kind of starts to slowly glide us into our first topic. The Trump era has largely been, a lot of it was started by frustrations with these kinds of things. You know, it wasn't even these giant topics, right? It's like we think about the border in this community. We talk about trafficking and all the stuff that we'll also talk about tonight. That's the bigger national issue type of stuff. But there's like a lot of at-home issues that are being caused by all the immigration. And part of it is just people, like 12 fucking people living in the lot next to you.
Yeah. Well, so like this will go back into my anecdote about Indians and real estate. I literally would go pick these, and the reason that all the other guys in my office would give them to me is they were like, I'm not dealing with this. Like there's going to be a catch. There's always some little thing that just makes it a huge pain in the ass. No, thank you. A lot of times for a lot of them, it was, I would pick them up at, all of them were H1B1 visas, all of them. And they were telling me about it. Like I was asking them questions just because I was generally interested and I really didn't know that much about it. I was just starting to learn about like, you know, the anecdotes about people like training these people to replace them, right? Oh, I'm going to train you and then I'm being late and then I'm being like severance package. Yeah. I would pick these guys up at the shittiest looking motel, I kid you not, you've ever seen in your life. Like places straight out of like a crime scene. Like probably like $20 a night at the time. I bet you it was probably like $15 a night to stay at these places. These guys were easily making like $200K, I bet, working for Capital One. All of them work for Capital One. And what they explained to me, what they would do is they would send all of their money back to their wife and kid in India. And so their wife and kid would stay in India. They would come here. They'd live in the shittiest place they could find, the cheapest place they could find. And they would just go to work all day, crush it, take all the money, send it back to India. Back in India, they were taking the money and they'd buy up all these sweatshops. This is what these people were explaining to me. They'd buy up the sweatshops in India. So they would then turn all of their neighbors back home into indentured servants and force the neighbors to
basically
work for
become
them.
lords.
Yes, they would become lords. And they were explaining this to me very openly. They were like they had no moral quandary, like explaining it to me. Yeah. And then these people, you set it up so that they like indefinitely owe you rent. You raise the rent incrementally. Now they're indebted to you. They can't leave. That's indentured servitude, right? Like you sign a contract with them where it's like I'm gonna spot you a few months rent, room and board or whatever. You're gonna work for me for X number of months, and then eventually, like they never get out of it. It always is a new expense. And once you get to a point where you like own factories and you become like a real slumlord in India, then you build the house in America and you move your family to America, and that's like the next step up. But you continue to like be an oligarch in India and like work, and like build your empire. And again, this is all the H1B1 stuff. Yeah. And these guys are literally living on like they're eating Hot Pockets and living in a motel, making $200K a year, working for Capital One, and they're sending all the money back to India. That money's leaving in the United States, not coming back. And then in India, they're using it to become, oligarchs, basically.
This is awkward because, as Cam points out in the chat, I was sort of pitching a return of indentured servitude the other day on Wednesday night, but I was pitching it in terms of us getting indentured servants again. I don't like it when other people are doing it, okay? But I'm saying let's meet halfway. let's take the H-1B situation and meet the Ingraham version of Trump halfway and say they can stay as long as
they become
indentured. They become indentured servants.
Indentured servants. I actually would be okay.
Yeah.
I'm 100. Like I'm not even kidding. I'd be 100%.
Yeah, I'm not either. It's just funny.
I'm not even kidding. Like yeah, it's like if they want to sign a contract where they basically become indebted to us, it's like okay, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, it's funny though. Your anecdote there about them becoming slumlords. This is tangential to some of the controversy that Trump has surfaced over the last couple of weeks, and it goes back beyond that. Obviously, we had the Vivek situation, Elon Musk. All these guys are engineers, right? They're all Tesla engineers. And I played devil's advocate with some of it, Wednesday night, of saying like, I have started to do a lot more research in the last year into advanced manufacturing, semiconductors in particular, things like that. There are some sectors that I at least am open to the argument of like, we outsourced all of this stuff, not just in terms of sweatshops and labor, which we did, but we also outsourced the manufacturing capacity and the technology and by extension, the expertise of these semiconductor operations, advanced telecommunications, like all these kinds of things, right? And I could understand, like, yeah, you bring some of these guys over from Taiwan or Beijing or whatever that have been like running these floors that have the most advanced chip making machinery. I've actually read a lot about this and done a lot of research. Specifically, it was a rabbit trail that came out of Tesla when I was doing a lot of research into the company Tesla and what makes them different. There's people that hate them, people that love them, people that think they're a bad op and a good op. But just in terms of what is the core function of the business, there's this guy, I'm going to forget his fucking name now. Jeff Lutz, I want to say. I'll have to look that up later. But that guy really blew my mind with Tesla. He said the reason nobody is going to be able to compete with them and that they have such a leg up to the point where people don't even realize what a leg up they have is that Elon or whoever's behind Tesla understood that it's not about what you're making on the line. It's about what is making what you're making. So in other words, it's about the manufacturing equipment, and whoever has the best manufacturing equipment and the engineers who can fix the manufacturing equipment, that is like an exponential lead over everybody else. So it's why I was blown away, but I double checked these stats. Apparently like a Tesla Model Y comes off of the assembly line in under 30 seconds right now. And his goal, done. And his goal is to get that down to 5 seconds within the next, because they use, I think they call them like unibody casts, basically, where instead of like all these mechanical arms going down a Toyota line, they just spent billions into engineering like one machine that slaps two pieces of a car together. Anyway, all of which is to say, Americans didn't have that shit, right? Like, Elon Musk, this South African, came in and like created the patents around this technology that nobody else has. If you want to make arguments like that about H-1B and saying, hey, we're trying to get Americans into this step change up all of a sudden of like, we've been building F-150s the same way for the last 20 years. We need to be able to build advanced semiconductors and all this shit that they're building over in China and beyond. So we might need a helping hand with that. That's fine. But to your point, the reason everybody's actually pissed off about H-1Bs is it's not people coming up with unibody die-cast patents. It's Indians becoming slumlords.
Yeah, they're scamming the system in order to send the money overseas so they can buy up like factories basically in the third world. And then once they built the factories, they leverage their relationships. They said it's all about networking in America, leveraging the relationships. So once they have the factories, they can then contact the businessmen and say, all right, what shit do you want these kids to make for you in India? Do you want us to sew up Nikes for you? Do you want us to sew up T-shirts? Like, what is it that we're making? Are we making Trumpomania shirts? What are we making? And I'll have these kids working 20 hours a day And that's really the purpose of outsourcing all this stuff, is because there's no regulation, is that they can force people to work 20 hours a day. And I mean, who's checking in on it? Like nobody. It's all about, and then at that point, it's just quality control. And that really just comes down to, all right, do we really care if the product is made? My wife is so livid right now because she's like, even nice stuff, if you can go out and spend money on stuff. And it used to be that like high-end stuff was nice. And then after that, everything was just crap.
Yeah.
It's like now even high-end stuff is crap. It's like,
it's shitty. Yeah.
Everything is shitty. Like everything we have, it's what's his name? William McKinley said, President McKinley said this. He said, cheap is a word that means cheap. Like when you settle for cheap shit, you become a cheap person, you become a cheap civilization, and we become a cheap civilization. We are nothing compared to what our grandparents 100 years ago, the nice ornate stuff. My grandfather was born in a coal mine in Virginia. His father died when he was 6 years old of black lung. He was the youngest of 11, and half his siblings didn't even live past the age of 10. These people grew up dirt poor, but you know what? They had their idea of what was quality, like the way a chair was put together. They would look at a chair that comes from any store now, and they'd be like, "This is shit."
Yeah, this is happening with, and you would know this with our your architectural experience. But I first. I have like tangential experience. My dad was a tradesman my whole life, so just like through osmosis, I understand a little bit of what's quality and what's not. But I'm a layman, and it was actually very eye-opening for me living in Canada for a while, especially modern Canada, because, and it's not unique to that. I know that there's a lot of American cities that are doing this now, but the whole McMansion craze, Canada is notorious for it, where I would just notice, especially growing up in New England, where there's a lot of, like I live in basically a colonial era house, or not colonial era, but I think that this part of the house was built in 1920. And like, if you meet a Canadian in the Toronto area that's of this generation, they've never fucking heard of that, right? Like maybe some like grandfather has a farm up north on Lake George, whatever it is. And it's from 1940 or something like that, but they haven't heard of this kind of thing. And what's funny is they've got all these cookie cutter neighborhoods of these brick houses, nice looking brick facade houses, not really brick houses. Yeah. And like I would just notice going to my in-laws like families' houses and stuff like that, where like you'd go in the bathroom and like the toilet wouldn't work, like it would break, the button would break. It is like just like little stuff like that, or you'd see gaps. Like I probably picked it up from my dad, but he was a plasterer. So like anytime he went into a place, he would look at the ceilings and like the molding and stuff like that. And I remember like looking at the ceilings in a lot of these houses, and there'd be like gaps in the plaster. And I'm like, man, is that a bad plasterer? Or like the seams separating because they were using this cheap plywood? And if you look up like YouTube videos of construction guys like showing you the nuts and bolts of what's going on in these houses, like these cookie cutter neighborhoods. There was one I saw where they showed like a 2x4, a joint that had been put together, and there was like 50 nails coming out of it. And he was like, now this may look like a shoddy carpenter put 50 nails into this joist, but what actually this is somebody was training a guy on how to do this, which is where you'll see these bunches of nails. Yeah. And he's like, that's at a joist of your house, which means that as soon as the master carpenter or like whoever was the manager was showing the guy how to use the gun, he's the one who put like all the seams of your fucking house together. So
the master carpenter went and did something else, and this guy who just learned how to use a nail gun, framed the house. Yeah.
Gonzalo. Yeah. And it's like, hey, they're hard workers, but it's kind of funny. Like it's such a difficult paradox that we're caught in, to use the first word of the night, because a lot of what you're talking about with the Indians and this whole H-1B controversy, the fundamental weakness that we have as Americans should not be a weakness, and that is, to your point, we have had a certain quality expectation of quality of life that they do not have. And when our government is in service of efficiency and not quality, even if you take out the deep state elements, they have an asymmetric advantage over Americans simply because, and they act like, oh, it's because we have these high standards because we're posh or something like that. It's like, no, we have high standards because people should have high standards.
Yeah.
And that gives them an asymmetric advantage in these kind of broken markets.
Yeah. I mean, not to harp too much on this, but 1970s was the worst era of construction in American home building history.
In terms of quality?
Yes. If you go, I mean, specifically in this market, but I think anywhere you go, my understanding, every guy in construction I've ever talked to said anything that was built in the 1970s is shit. Anything. And you can, like the old house I renovated 6 years ago, that's the content I used to put on social media. Is I would just on my own account. I had like 500 followers, my friends, but I would renovating and I'd be explaining stuff to people like why this is, because there are houses you can go into where you can peel up the floor and you can see like 3 layers of history. Like, oh, here's the renovation from 20 years ago. Here's the renovation from 40 years ago. Here's the original house from 100 years ago. And they never tore out the old stuff. They just built right on top of the new stuff. But you can always tell when it's a 1970s addition. You can always tell. The floors are never aligned. The walls are never plumb. It's framed like shit. The products are crap. It's got the asbestos, like all that stuff. And then we went back in the 90s and construction standards came in, because then you got the building code. The building code comes in and people started to apply these standards. So we got pulled out of the crap where you just had a bunch of retards building stuff, guys who had no idea what they were doing, just building stuff. And then we got standards. The problem is that then in the 90s, we had started outsourcing everything to Japan and Taiwan and then eventually China. So this house was built in 1995. When we moved in 5 years ago, all the original fixtures were there. So eventually we've now replaced all the fixtures, but it got to a point where literally every single faucet in every single bathroom, you would turn the faucet and the handle would just come off in your hand, and then water would start shooting out of the handle. Like that happened to 3 different faucets in my house. And all of them, if you look at them, were made in China in 1995. All my toilets were made in China in 1995. All of them. Now, they lasted 30 years. I mean, 25, 30 years. So, I mean, that's a pretty solid life. But this stuff was just absolute builder grade crap. But 100 years ago, you can walk into a number of houses that have faucets that are from the 1940s, from the 1950s, from the 1960s, and it's still original stuff. Yeah, and it's still working.
And I bet, I use a Canadian anecdote, but I'm sure many of the places going on, these cookie cutter neighborhoods that are going on in the U.S., you're going to find that the 2010s are going to be notorious for that type of thing, where it's going to be like, man, again, the McMansion craze, well, it looks great. And then underneath it, it's like, yeah, I'd probably rather, if you're in New England, you should probably look for a house that's 100 years old. And, it's like, hey, I mean, if I go into the old side of my house is really weird. Half of it is literally a 100-year-old cottage. And then there was an addition 15 years ago that's new. So it's got 2 basements at different elevations. And the old basement is this stone foundation. So that's probably solid, but then there's 1 2x4 in the middle of the board, the floor, and I'm I've asked my dad, I'm that doesn't seem that secure. He's like, yeah, it's fine, but I don't know. We'll see. So that's going to transition us into our first topic, typical of me and Ghost. I do want to just make one note. I saw Mama of 3 boys in the chat. I want to give a shout out to her. She said, checking in for the numbers. We'll catch the episode tomorrow. Don't forget to hit the like button. Good night. Thank you for doing that. I am not good about shilling for likes and things like that. Sometimes it's because I don't think it works or matters. It actually does. Anytime I actually do ask you guys to like the show and do stuff like that, you do. So please do that. Please like the show. I appreciate when people do that. You don't always have to give a rant or something like that. If you like the show, or like Mama of 3 boys did, literally, if you participate in the chat or leave a comment or something, it helps us. Rumble likes that kind of stuff. They're trying to see who's got real engagement and who doesn't. So I appreciate that. And the third aspect of tonight's show is you guys, as always. So if you guys have, if you guys want to send a rant over or anything like that, we'll get to that before we hand you guys off to the Q After Dark boys. So we usually do the story right now and the theme and thesis. These things are going to blend a bit tonight. The theme and thesis is the Pincer paradox. I do want to try to hit a few of those tonight, but I do want to start with the story right now, which maybe we can argue there's some pincers going on, but I'm interested in your take on this. Generally, there is even more than many of the other months this year, in what I would say is a more contentious year than people in this community thought was going to be. Like, I don't think that that's going out on a limb. Yep. Been an interesting week or two in MAGA. You've got Donald Trump saying stuff that people love, Donald Trump saying stuff that people hate, people we love criticizing Trump really strongly, people we hate criticizing Trump really strongly for the same things, which I think is one of the things that throws people for loops. The H-1B that we just talked about for a little while is part of this, but there's a lot going on. You had him go to war with Massey and MTG, go to war, I'm saying narratively, right? I listened to a bit of John and Chris's show last night, and I liked a little section that they had that because I do this too. We all play this game at times of what's kayfabe and what's not. The whole Sovereign Alliance is essentially built on that. So I think it's a real thing. I don't think it should be dismissed. I think we have a lot of evidence. You've got the Trumpomania shirt on right now. We have a lot of evidence that there is narrative gamesmanship going on and strategy going on, right? But I also think it's fair, to Chris and John's point, of saying you don't just get to choose what you think Trump is doing with MTG or Massey and pretend it's not possible that it's the exact opposite of that, right? So I think that that's fair. And I think in this conversation, it's just worth considering when we see the reaction to a lot of what's going on with Trump, and especially I'm thinking of like the new meme that I even saw Ship was posting. I'm not flaming her, I get it, but the whole like put the MAGA hat down, put the America First hat on. By the way, anybody in this audience, I don't know if you remember, but I was saying that back in 2023. Like, that was one of my big things, was that I thought I noticed Donald Trump shifting his rhetoric from MAGA to America First. And I
remember you talking about that, yeah.
I literally called it a rebrand that he was doing intentionally to start to decouple us from the GOP. But now apparently we're in November 2025, and that's a Nick Fuentes thing. Yeah. So this is why we get annoyed at times. But anyway, with all of that being said, just generally, what do you think about what's going on with the intra-MAGA friction, tension? How much of it is real? How much of it is engineered? What part of it is good? Are there parts of it that are bad or that you have your eye on?
No, it's all great questions. And, generally I think all of it's good. I think that the friction it's very timely because we were talking about this at GART a bunch. That was kind of the theme of GART was just this,
friction.
Like, friction. And we kind of decided that like Thursday, right? When we were just all in a meeting and talking about it, and we just kept coming up. But I did see Shipwreck, like, she put up that meme, the one of like dropping the MAGA hat in the trash and putting on the America First hat. But then I saw her like make her own version of it where it was clearly modified, where it was dropping the MAGA hat and the America First hat in the trash and then putting on a white hat that said America only. That's like her thing that she pushes is America only, which is pretty based. I mean, I actually agree. I do agree with that. Because that should be the position. It's not America first, and then we take care of the rest of the world. It's just America only. And then the rest of the world takes care of themselves, and then we meet in the marketplace of ideas, and we trade goods and services and ideas and all that stuff. So I do agree with that version of, and I think you're right about the rebranding. Now, going back to the friction, we need the friction because the friction is what's going to energize us and push us into the place we need to be. Because I think a huge failure would be for us as a movement would be if we looked at Trump right now and Trump was just crushing it and just hitting everything, which I know he's doing. But there was none of this tension in the narrative. There was none of this animosity. There was none of that stuff. All of it was just sunshine and rainbows. Everything's good. Oh yeah, there's Hillary Clinton being perp walked. Oh yeah, there's Barack Obama going to jail.
You're on the side of the Great Awakening and MAGA, or you're in the normies and the sleepers. Like it was very bifurcated.
Yeah, it's like if everything that Q promised was happening right now, right? And all the things that everyone thought was going to happen were just happening. What do you think the movement would look like right now? The movement would look like a 350-pound guy lounging in a hammock, drinking like a Budweiser, being like, "This is great. Like I don't have to do anything." Right? That would not be a very healthy long-term like movement, right? I mean that's like the minute Trump is done, like actually done, and rides off to the sunset and or departs this earth, God forbid that day. Then what? Like then what happens the next day? If we don't have an army of people who are just as hardcore as Trump has been and are ready to like battle this thing out and carry it forward, then we have absolutely failed. So, you know, my mentality that I try to maintain going through all this, I think John and Chris are right. You should always just be first principles. If you look at a situation and you're like, hey, I don't agree with what Trump is saying right now, that's okay. You can actually say, you know what? I think Trump is actually wrong here. I agree with this part of what he says, but I don't think he actually is right in his overall thesis on this. I agree with the idea of doing a consultancy because he did the H-1B thing. He was very like, what's the word? Belligerent with it. Like he was just kind of like, like Americans aren't qualified to do the job.
Blunt force trauma. Yeah.
It was blunt force trauma. And then Scott Bessent came out the next day and was like, oh, well, really, like what we're going to do is we're going to bring people in to consult and they're going to train and then they're going to leave. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, that sounds more like a consultancy than it does, you know, like hiring foreign, right?
And those two are always a great bicameral. I think the guys mentioned that last night as well. Like you've got Trump says something and then you get like a different translation layer coming out a few hours later of Scott Bessent. What he meant was, and I don't think that's literally Scott Bessent trying to reframe Trump. No. I think it is Trump knew what he was doing and knew what conversation he was going to get started. And then Bessent comes in and clarifies, like, here's an argument. Here's the argument that we're putting forth. Now you put one forth.
Yeah, because you know what? That clip of Scott Bessent didn't make the rounds. Okay. Like the people who like us who are like political junkies who are looking for it, we saw it. Nobody else saw it.
Nobody knows who Scott Bessent is. If I walk down my street, nobody, if I went to a local fucking gala of like New England donors, 1% of them would know who he is.
Yeah.
So
But you know what? That clip of Trump of him saying that Americans aren't qualified for the job, and so we're going to do H-1B. That clip went viral, and everyone saw that clip, and it got everyone's jimmies rustled, and everyone was pissed, and everyone was saying, "What the hell?" And you know what? You should be mad when you hear that, because if you're interpreting that as a threat, and you're like, well, "Wait a minute, is Trump actually doing the thing that we sent him there to do?" That is absolutely the right mentality to always have, no matter who it is you voted for, like quote unquote voted for. You should always be trust but verify. Like in a best case scenario, when you have someone like Trump in the White House, who I think we all trust because of, you know, he's the man in the arena, right? You still do trust but verify.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And fine. Let me just finish this out. You know, this is we're going to build a wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. This is we're going to kick everyone out of Gaza and do the Gaza Riviera, right? This is what Trump does. He does the 10-second, 15-second soundbite, and that soundbite is going to go around the world a million times, and everyone's going to hear it, and it's going to get the message out there, and then we're going to get people like Scott Bessent who come in, and they're like, all right, this is what it actually means. Yeah, we're building a wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. They're not cutting us a check. They're going to pay for it through tariffs. They're going to pay for it through whatever, right? And so, but again, like nobody wants to hear Trump explain that. Trump doesn't want to explain that. He wants to do the meme. And, you know, back when I was doing, like when my brother's case was happening and I was doing these interviews with the media about it, and I was trying to get attention on it because there was a lot of shit going on with it that was really messed up. I realized very quickly that you would do a 20-minute, 30-minute interview, even in like a 5-minute interview, 10-minute interview, 10 seconds, if you're lucky, 10 seconds of that interview are going to make it on the news. Like, they're going to do a 3-minute news story on the story. If you're lucky, you'll get 10 seconds. It's probably going to be 5 seconds. So what part are they going to play? They're going to play the clip that captivates, the soundbite that captures whatever it is they're trying to capture for the story. Yeah. So what Trump does is he creates the soundbite for them. Here's your 5-second, 10-second, 15-second, 20-second clip of the thing that you want. You want me saying something that you think is boneheaded, that you think is belligerent, but I'm getting my message out. The wall just got 10 feet higher, motherfucker, because you just threatened me. You remember when he said that?
Yeah.
Remember when he said the wall just got 10 feet higher? Yeah, it's like, but that's what he does. It's blunt, like you said perfectly, blunt force trauma, and then everybody loses their mind, and the thing goes viral.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I think there's a few things to peel back in there, because that stance, that argument you're forwarding on the macro is not going to shock most people watching this show, who have watched this show, who have been around Badlands for a while. A lot of Q people who aren't even Badlands people would also not necessarily disagree with that. I saw a lot of people in chat saying Trump is directing the narrative, Trump is weaponizing the narrative, all those kinds of things. And I think that's all true. I mean, I started the show The Narrative. I call Trump the master of narrative warfare. I wrote 50,000 words on that over the course of 4 years. So you're not going to get an argument from me against that. But I think the way you lay it out is important. And I think there's still a conversation to be had here about this community, not everybody, of course, but taking the wrong lessons there, right? Like the people who are only saying Trump is directing the narrative, Trump is weaponizing the narrative, Trump is looking for a reaction, without then trying to understand what is he trying to do. That's what I was thinking about this a lot this week, of saying, man, why is there so much tension right now within MAGA if supposedly a lot of, or within the truth community, let's even go deeper, the truth community, not just MAGA. Why is there so much tension about what he's saying? And it's interesting because most in the truth community, you're not here unless you've engaged with the drops or you recognize that Trump is part of something bigger, right? If you're talking about Q drops, if you're talking about 5th gen warfare, psyops, the devolution operation, all these kinds of things that people in this whole community talk about. We understand that Trump does this and know not to react to it, and have really learned how to kind of parse what he's doing for a decade. But there's still reactions. And I would say it's because I think Trump is getting more harsh on kind of the MAGA base because of that. So in other words, I don't know if that really made sense, but to try to crystallize it, I think that I try to war game. What if I was the Patriots that we all theorize, and we're sitting in the skiff and we're looking at our metrics of like, where are people at, right? Like, where are the American people at on a given topic? Where is the MAGA base at in a given topic? Where is the truth community at in a given topic? Because I do think they consider that, because the truth community influences MAGA, and MAGA really controls the zeitgeist right now. They also look at, what do moderate, reachable lefties think about all this kind of stuff? What do centrist normies think about it? And if I try to steel man and say, would they have any problems with the way the truth community, their most hardcore base, talks about these issues in 2025? And I would say, yeah. I would guess that they do have some issues with that. So we talked about the H-1B thing, right? That's one example. If the reaction, now I think they probably think it good, bad. Good thing, okay, the MAGA core, the truth community, people who understand there's psyops going on, they're not freaking out about the H-1B thing. I think patriots would think that's good. Like, they've learned not to overreact. Here's the negative. In not reacting at all, a lot of people are doing exactly what you kind of described, where they're just fully handing over whatever Trump ends up doing is what I'm going to like, without engaging in the thought experiment about the issue that he's putting forth to highlight. And I would argue that that is going backwards. There's a lot of people in the truth community that are literally thinking less about the H-1B issue than a normie is. And like, you see what I'm trying to say? Like they're not emotionally reacting, which is good
because they're trusting the plan.
Yeah, right? It's good that they're not emotionally reacting. Yeah. It's good that this audience doesn't emotionally react. Yep. But I think Trump is trying to get this audience to emotionally react a little bit and say, like, guys, remember, you can believe everything's going to be okay, and we do have a plan. There is a plan. I do trust that Trump has a plan, and that Scott Bessent has a plan and all this stuff, right? But you should be thinking about what that plan is, trying to determine what that plan should be, and adding your voice to the argument over that plan. And to shape it. And that's the argument that I'm making, is that the thing that some people frame us as dooming about, or Shipwreck as dooming about, I can get into some aspects of where I think there's some traps here that I want to cover next. But in terms of like why we forward this argument, I think we're largely forwarding the same argument. I think John and Chris are as well. We're not saying like, hey, go after Trump and call him a piece of shit and whatever. Like, it's not that. It's saying like, hey guys, don't you think that the Patriots have a lot of respect for the people in this kind of core, the people who are really politically active, the people who really think about these things and really know about fifth generation warfare and all that? Do you think they want you to not be involved in the argument over the future of the country? You know, and one more point I'd make to this, and I'm going to throw some shade, and you can respond to any of what I just said.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw some shade, and not at anybody in particular, because there's a lot of people that do this. This is not like, oh, I'm thinking of one specific person. I have noticed a trend in the truth community lately. People who do podcasts, people who just are social media figures, whatever it is. They are beta testing, market testing. We would call it in publishing or in marketing, split testing. They are split testing their opinions. And I want you guys in this audience to look for this in the next few weeks, because I think it's a big deal. What I mean by that is some of your favorite people are putting polls out. Anytime Trump does something controversial, they'll put a Twitter poll out. Now, I think there's reasons to do that, right? You want to know where your audience is at for all these kinds of things. There are some people that you should look at those polls that they post and say, what do you think, for example, what do you think about Donald Trump's feud with MTG? And they'll have the A-B split test in their poll. And my argument is that they are not trying to figure out where the listeners of their show or viewers are at because they're curious. They want to know where you guys are at because they want to know what opinion to tell you that night. And if you start looking at, I started catching them doing this a few months ago because 2025 has been very confusing. Yeah, they've been, but 2025, I've been calling them trustees. 2025 has been very confusing for trustees, for MAGA trustees. So a lot of the podcasters that are only trust the plan without actually trying to figure out what the plan is, they are split testing you guys. They are putting polls out and saying, what do you think of MTG? And if 80% of you say A, guess what their opinion's going to be that night? Guess what the decodes are going to show that night? And this happens on Twitter. It's not just decoders and stuff like that. Start looking for that, because I would argue that Donald Trump isn't looking for people to market, split test the reactions of their audiences in advance of having conversations like this. They are looking for people to get on and for you guys to go back and forth and argue or converse in good faith, not via market split testing. Ironically, I think Trump is split testing the market. And I think a lot of influencers are mimicking him, and you can kind of see right through it. And I think it's pretty gross.
Well, a lot of good points you're making here, because I think that you're right that there's atrophy. You know, like if you could imagine a well-conditioned, well sculpted athlete, you know, a world-class athlete, suddenly, for whatever reason, is bedridden for 6 months, 8 months, a year, right? And is not out training and is not doing anything. What's going to happen to that athlete? They're going to get out of shape. They're going to get fat. They might even get lazy. They might even, like, some of the habits that they formed, or, they might grow out of them. And it's much harder to reform those habits. I think you're right that the truth movement is, like, the tip of the spear is really in danger of falling into that atrophy, because you're right. A lot of people have turned their discernment off because they're just expecting, here's a checklist of things that's going to happen. I'm looking at the headlines. I'm seeing that checklist in some ways being checked off. I mean, there's a lot of accountability that needs to a lot of promises made that still need to come to fruition, but we're relatively still early.
There's some good stuff happening, though. There is some good stuff happening.
There's plenty of signal, right? And that can generate complacency, and the complacency manifests in people not asking questions, not engaging in debate, not engaging in dialogue, just trusting the plan and going along with it. And you're right. What ends up happening is the normies are actually the ones having all the arguments and debates, because they're
doing what we used to do.
Yeah, because they're trying to figure out what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And then the people in the truth movement aren't doing any of that, because they're like, well, we figured it out years ago, and now it's finally happening, so we're just going to eat popcorn and enjoy the show. And it's like, okay, but we still have to shape this society. We still have to shape the civilization, and Donald Trump isn't doing all that by himself. Even if he has a whole team of people around him, And ultimately, I think it comes down to this. Like, we all view this in different ways. The way that I view it is specific, but I don't think this theater. I mean, Trump mania. Shout out to Meme Hunter. Meme Hunter in the chat made me this shirt and sent it to me.
Nice.
But the reason that I think this is happening, Trump mania, is not because to wake up the normies. I don't think it's about the public. I genuinely think it is about combat with the enemy. I think it is about going after the enemy that is not just a foreign enemy, but of course a domestic enemy, and not just a CIA deep state enemy, but also a GOP enemy, an enemy within the MAGA movement, an enemy within the truth movement, like an enemy that has infiltrated every single layer and has people everywhere and has rugs set up. They have redundancies. They have backup plans. They have everything laid out. Like, this is a series of battles, a series of skirmishes that I think are taking place. And all the things that I think Trump does is designed to ultimately take those people down. Consider this. If Trump comes in, which is what he kind of did the first term, and he boxes out the neocons, he boxes out the Republican Party, he boxes all those people out, the Zionists, all of them, and he just brings in the most base people you could possibly imagine. Yeah. And he makes them the secretaries, like all the cabinet members. He points them to all the key positions. Number one, good luck getting any of those people confirmed, right? None of those people getting confirmed. We know that. But number two, you're going to have people like that's going to be the people you're boxing out, the GOP, who are the enemy. They are then going to go get in bed with the Democrats, who they, of course, are already in bed with, the Uniparty, but ostensibly. And then you're going to be fighting a two-front war. You're going to be fighting a war against the Democrats and the Republicans out in public instead of the one that happens behind closed doors. You're also going to drive a lot of these people to do what you talk about, which is hibernation theory. You're going to drive all the sleeper cells underground, and they're going to go sleep for 5-10 years. And then, okay, that's fine. We'll deal with this Middle East thing in 10 years. We'll deal with this Venezuela thing in 10 years. We'll deal with this Ukraine-Russia thing in 10 years. When Putin's gone, when Trump's gone, easy. Like, we have time. They have time. That's like, time is something that they have always had on their side. Always. Yep. So instead, what Trump does is he engages them. He says, oh, bring your people in, come into the war tent, sit down. You tell me what I should do. Like, what should I do next, neocon?
And he amplifies that publicly.
Yeah.
And they amplify it.
Oh, Ted Cruz. Oh, Mike Huckabee. Let's make you the ambassador to Israel. You think that?
What do you think we should do?
You think Palestine literally is not a place? Like, the Palestinian people aren't even a thing. Like, that's just a figment of our imagination. You are the perfect person to go be the ambassador to Israel in this very, very like powder keg moment of geopolitics.
Start scoping out that Riviera.
Dude, the moment that happened, and by the way, Mike Huckabee was the first person. I think there were a few low-level advisors, but other than that, the first person he appointed to his entire cabinet was early. It was Tuesday morning. It was the week after the election. And that announcement came first. And when I was walking through my office that I used to work in at the firm I used to work at, and I read that on my phone, and I started laughing out loud when I read that. I said, the first appointment he's making is not only the U.S. ambassador to Israel, which I knew Nick Fuentes was going to lose his shit over, and he did. All of them did. But it was Mike Huckabee. When I saw that, I said, okay, it's on. Something really weird is about to happen. And then that one day, 11 appointments, all of them were Fox News characters, Zionists, all of that. And it's like, why would you do that? Why would you, people started to feel the betrayal, like the whole betrayal narrative. That's where it all starts, is right there. And if you stop and you think about all of this is about moves and counter moves against those exact people, the people you're appointing. And now maybe the people that he's appointing are people who are totally redeemable. They're people who are ultimately going to be on our side. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're bad guys. Right. Trump brought in John Bolton in the first term, and then he arrested him. Okay.
Well, that's one note on somebody like that. Bolton is a great example of where signal gets lost in translation between our stance, and when I say us, I don't just mean people on Badlands, I even mean a lot of our Badlanders who have these kinds of stances, and the rest of the truth community, is that we can believe John Bolton is part of the plan while having no role in the plan, no active role in the plan, and not being a good guy. And that's where things get lost in translation at times, where when we call people trustees or trust the plan only, it's a problem because people like that will just put a white hat on John Bolton at that time because he's in the Trump administration and trust Trump. And then they'll look at us when we're criticizing John Bolton at the time, or whoever, pick your person, Mike Huckabee, pick whoever it is right now, and they'll say, you're not trusting the plan. When, as we've been talking about lately, we're the ones trying to figure out what the plan is. And obviously the plan was to expose John Bolton as the warmonger he is and to use him as a symbol and a cipher of that whole warmonger neocon contingent, specifically around the Middle East, but Russia and beyond. And there's a lot of that going on, to your point, right now in the administration as well. And that's the problem with trust only. If there's trust only, you're not trying to discern what Trump is actually trying to get you to do. And we've had many, many examples over the decade now, and basically 3 administrations, 2 public administrations, of people that Trump put forward, and trustees just gobbled them up because this is part of the plan, and people who criticize them end up being right. And it turns out, it was part of the plan. It's just that the plan was for this person to be completely exposed as the deep state piece of shit that they were.
Yeah, I was supposed to see if I could find this clip, and I can find it. Let me play this clip real quick. This is definitely worth watching. This is, I found this. I think I posted this I posted it on October 17th, so it's about a month old.
Oh wait, this is a different.
No, it's not what I meant to. I'm not sharing the right screen. Just give me 1 second. I'm trying to. I just downloaded.
You've just always got Putin and Kim in the car, just going.
always. Well, like that was my initial icebreaker for the show. Is I wanted to be like, what do you think the soundtrack is in that car? And, and then I wanted to say we know what it's not. It's not K-pop because because Kim Jong-un hates K-pop.
It'll make you gay.
Outlawed it in North Korea, which is probably the most based thing about North Korea is that it's
totally, she outlawed it as well.
Yeah,
and said that it was making Chinese guys gay.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Super gay. All right, so listen to this, and this is you're actually a great person to talk to about this because there's so much signal here. This is McGregor talking to Judge Napolitano. I think this is either right after Bolton was arrested or like the day before he was arrested. Somebody would have to go look in the exact timeline. It doesn't really matter. But listen to what McGregor says.
That might mean Israel, I must say.
Thought it was reprehensible that he would
And the context here is like they're responding to the fact that Trump just called out Miriam Adelson, which was hilarious when that happened, by the way, in the Knesset. Yeah. And he said, like, I think she's more loyal to Israel than America. Like, I happen to think that that's him calling her out, throwing her under the bus. He also called out her wealth and was like, she's worth $60 billion. Nobody would say that. She won't admit to that, but it's $60 billion. And that's what Napolitano is about to comment on.
He would be joking about that he would recount it. That he would tell the world her supposed wealth, which is an extraordinary number, but nobody's business.
Well, I remember that Miriam's husband was the one who called Donald Trump and begged him to talk to John Bolton, urged him to consider John Bolton for the job as National Security Advisor. And up until that point, President Trump had refused to meet with the man. He didn't like Bolton, didn't like anything about him, and didn't want him around. But Allison said, please, Donald, please talk to him. He's a good man. Well, that's how we got John Bolton.
So think about this. Like McGregor just explained to everybody, and that clip went all over the place. Like all the Groypers were spreading this around. They're like, see, Sheldon Adelson is the one calling the shots here. Listen to what McGregor just said. He said Donald Trump refused to even hear the name John Bolton. Like, he knew what John Bolton was. He knew exactly what he was until Sheldon Adelson, the guy who bankrolled all of his campaigns, said, hey, I want this guy in the administration. Oh, you do? Okay, bring him in. And then Trump uses the guy to his advantage. And think about all the things that we accomplished from that decision. Number one, we can now turn around and say the Israeli lobby does in fact influence the federal government, does actually have considerable influence of the U.S. government. You cannot deny that. Even Donald Trump is beholden to that dynamic because of it's his number one donor. Number two, what did John Bolton get arrested for? He got arrested for taking classified documents out, right? Yeah. And so think about the advantage. I mean, you got to go to Sun Tzu. You got to read Sun Tzu. And what does Sun Tzu say about allowing someone like John Bolton to join your administration? Why would you do that? You would allow him to join your administration and then give him the files and say, hey, here's what we're going to do, John. Go give this to your friends and let them know, right? And of course, it's not actually
definitely don't let anybody know.
Yeah, don't let anyone see this stuff. Yeah. Don't take it home and put it in your drawer and never bring it back. but it's like that's how you disseminate bad intel to the enemy. Is you bring a guy in and you're like, oh yeah, we love John Bolton, like he's the best. Oh yeah, Lindsey Graham, like Lindsey Graham is the greatest, like literally the greatest patriot in American history. Yep. It's like, and then you give him the information, you stuff the note in the pigeon's bag, and then you send the pigeon off, and that's how you put intel into the hands, bad intel into the hands of the enemy. And then of course, like there are other reasons, like the optics of using Bolton, like, oh well, we liked him because he was the government pitcher when we were speaking with Putin. Meanwhile, it's like, oh yeah, Putin and Xi and Kim Jong-un, they're actually our guys, right?
Absolutely. I agree with that. And it sets up kind of where I wanted to go to finish out the current MAGA sphere situation. Because, the ship post in particular, it wasn't just her. It was the reactions to that and a lot of people sharing the, put the MAGA hat down, put the America First hat on. That didn't bother me because of everything we've talked about. But there is something going on here, and you mentioned hibernation theory, and I had written that article a year ago of, basically gaming out what would the enemy's plan be entering Trump 2.0, and I said, and John as well, that it would probably not look like it did the first time around, because it didn't work, and it did tremendous damage to them to have such open and obvious color revolution style tactics. Now, part of that could be that these networks are being defanged and defunded, like that. That's all true. But I thought the hibernation was the most likely. I think that, to your point, Trump is provoking those cells right now. And we we all kind of understand that from like a No Kings riots and NGOs, that kind of stuff, right? Like really obvious color revolution style rhetoric. Trump does something. People in this audience can see that he is baiting. He's baiting reactions out of the normie sphere. He's baiting reactions out of enemies, and he's baiting reactions out of the normie layers, right? So I always say I look at reverse indicators. I look at what people I don't like are grabbing onto, and I get a little warning light that goes off on my dashboard when I see us as a grouping sort of forwarding similar talking points. It doesn't mean the talking points are wrong, but it means there's something going on here. And the example I would use is the Fuentes thing, right? He's just one example. You can like Fuentes if you want to like Fuentes. But many of you guys have been watching the show or DPH. Back in June, I started saying, man, this is long before Charlie Kirk, long before any of that. I said, Nick Fuentes is fucking everywhere right now. And everywhere in terms of normie layers of the internet. Everywhere. Everywhere. And G-Money thought he was taking my talking point down in Cocoa Beach when he got up and said, my son and his Zoomer friends love Fuentes and you're missing signal, which was my point. But how did Nick Fuentes, who G-Money's son had never heard of a year ago, become their favorite guy in 2025? He was pushed by a machine.
Yeah,
the algorithm. Yes, the algorithm pushed Nick Fuentes and fed him Clockwork Orange style into the pried open eyes of Gen Z all summer. And I've said before, like, there's a lot of talented psyops going on the game board. Nick is very talented. Yep. Like, in terms of just all these psyops, a lot of these people that we don't like, and this is our opinion. This is my opinion. We all understand in this audience the idea of, giving bits of the truth and then the rug pulls come later. Like if you're a bad psyop, the easiest way to think of this is rhinos that you're talking about. Like they almost are cartoonish to people in this audience now because you can spot a rhino like all the way across the savannah. You're like, man, John Bolton in 2025 and Lindsey Graham in 2025 is not going to fool 99% of the Badlands audience. But in Nick Fuentes, 99% of what he says is good. Like 99% is really well stated, emotionally stated. He's charismatic. He's kind of fearless in terms of how he comes off. He represents a generation that is absolutely disenfranchised. He has really taken hold of that emotional... I've talked about this for years on the show, and back on Defected with Kyle, I used to talk about it a lot. This disenfranchised young male energy in the Western zeitgeist that is real, is absolutely real, that is getting funneled right into Nick Fuentes and people of his ilk. It's not Charlie Kirk. Trust me. If you've ever been in an Xbox Live COD lobby, nobody in my adult life has ever brought up Turning Point USA or Charlie Kirk ever. Those guys, I hate to say it to the people who like them, and rest in peace Charlie Kirk, are a fucking joke to the actual disenfranchised men of the United States. They consider those fucking suit-wearing, polo-wearing, Sunday golf with the hedge bros, like that is not the image of the leaders of the disenfranchised American male youth in the United States. It is not. Nick Fuentes is, though. He's a guy who's been banned from every platform. He says things you're not supposed to say. When Charlie Kirk, again, rest his soul, is on stage proudly just glowing about the fact that they have a gay black guy on stage with him, like calling it out like it's a badge that they're wearing around, while Fuentes is talking about black violence in America. The silent, vast majority of millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha are following Fuentes. not Charlie Kirk and them. Now, there are good things about what I just laid out because they're attracted to the rhetoric. They're attracted to the ideas. They're attracted to somebody ostensibly telling the truth. And Nick Fuentes might be a completely earnest guy. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But when I look at like, who is Trump's recent rhetoric meant to provoke? It's not just the Nick Fuentes of the world. It's not that they're coming out and arguing against his H-1B stance like many of us are as well.
Yep.
It's that Nick wants the movement now, right? Nick is the movement now. And Mark Levin is on that side now. And that's what I think you have to look for. Like, I'm not saying I have the solution, but that is, back in November 2022, I wrote The Wolves Among Us, and it was all about how Trump baited the Con Inc. sphere, specifically the Shapiros of the world, the Candaces of the world, that kind of era, even the Turning Point USAs of the world. He provoked them. It was the DeSantards that Chris Paul was calling out long before that turn happened.
Yep.
He provoked them in 2022. Most in this audience have recognized them and have not forgotten them since that time. The Cernoviches, the Shapiros, the Candaces, all of that. Some people still take the cheese on Candace. I don't know what your fucking problem is. But now there's a new breed. That new breed is the America First, Groyper, like Hitler might not have been that bad kind of movement. And it's really clever, and they have a lot of kind of emotion behind them. And again, I don't have a like, here's what you should do. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's more, if Trump is trying to get anybody out of the hibernation right now, that's what I think is going on. I think that Trump is appearing weak. And in this case, it's not that he's appearing weak because he's at the administration, right? He controls the government, all that. I think he's appearing weak in that he is saying things his base doesn't like.
Yes.
And what is the net effect of that? It's everything you said earlier in the show, which is good. It is also provoking the Fuenteses of the world, the Groypers of the world, and the America First branding of the world to come in, and they smell blood, and they're trying to take what MAGA is. So it doesn't mean everybody sharing these memes is knowingly doing this, but I would say that that's what I think you've got to be careful of. That's what I think Trump is going after. He's going after the new Con Inc., which is a much more subversive, much more talented, sort of, and, you know, in some ways, not to use CNN rhetoric, but dangerous version of what MAGA could be. And Chris Paul's also talked about this in terms of like, you go digging too far into any one of those guys' rabbit holes, and you're going to come up against like, maybe Hitler was the good guy. Maybe we do need Christian nationalism in the way that the mainstream media frames it, which is like nobody else is allowed here, all that kind of stuff. Like you get to those kinds of talking points, and ultimately it's a very logical sort of pitch, and it's an emotional pitch, but ultimately, in my view, it's very nihilist. They don't think things are going to get better. They can't wait to tell you how Donald Trump is just another elite, and that's usually the tell that you're dealing with some kind of anti-Trump op. And does Fuentes and Tucker doing their makeup, which, by the way, I said on Twitter that they would end up having a big makeup session as soon as Tucker and Candace double-teamed Nick. I was like, oh, they're setting up Nick, Trumpomania style, right? But not in a good way. I think that there's a lot of that going on, right? Like, Trump is not the only one doing heel turns and face turns. The most clever people in the kind of alternative circuit are doing the same sort of thing, I think.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, Nick Fuentes, there's a reason that he's effective. It's because he's obviously very talented. He's very smart. He's very prepared. He has answers. He's done his research. He's done his homework. He can talk ad hominem about any of the stuff that we talk about, right? And he has, it's not just like aimless meandering of
he has real knowledge of this stuff.
He has real knowledge, he has real facts, and he knows exactly how to drill those facts down in a very concise, quick way. Like, he will get to the point very quickly, and he can create those sound bites that spread around the internet. Even Steve Bannon was talking about on Friday, like how talented and smart he is, like how Nick Fuentes is very effective for that reason. Now, I agree with you. Is he something organic? Is he something that was created? I don't know. Like arguments can be made both ways. Who knows? I think you're a dog chasing your tail trying to figure that kind of stuff out.
Yeah.
What's more important is trying to take a step back and evaluate the bigger picture, like to your point and what you're saying, because ultimately what you're talking about here is dialectics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're right.
Just to be clear, I'm using Nick as an example of one of these ciphers, but that's where I think, to your point, it is the dialectic. That's the point.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. Those guys are what your mom wants the next generation to be like, right? Yes. But is that actually what the next generation is like? Well,
no.
Yeah. So it's like that's what the older people want for the younger people. Like they want them all to be Charlie Kirk. They want them all to be Turning Point USA guys. Who may or may not actually be the people they represent themselves to be on the screen. I don't know any of them personally. It also seems now, like, because I've given Charlie Kirk a ton of shit, because of the stuff that he talks about. More importantly, the stuff he didn't talk about. I've come to realize that I think Charlie was figuring all this out. Like now that we're seeing all this stuff, I think he was figuring this all out on his own. Like he was figuring out. He did an interview with Tucker that I never watched, like actually not too long before he was killed. And I skipped over it because I was just like, yeah, fuck Charlie Kirk, because I was hyper focused on the fact that he would not criticize Israel. And that bothered me. It bothered me that he was willing to criticize every single thing out there, even Trump, like even some of the MAGA stuff. He was willing to, play devil's advocate, but he was never willing to play devil's advocate with Israel. And that bothered me. And now I come to realize it was because he basically had a gun to his head at all times saying, you better not play devil's advocate with Israel. Now getting back to Nick and Charlie, these are dialectics that I think were being set up for us. I think it's very clear to me that the whole Democrat rhetoric was dead. Like the brand was killed off during the Biden administration, and whether or not, how soon that was supposed to happen versus when it actually happened, I don't know. I saw Chris Paul made a really smart post earlier today comparing what's happening right now to like 1920s, 1930s Germany, where, for those who don't know, 1920s Germany, you had Weimar Germany. It was a communist country. The communists took over. There was like a mutiny in the German Navy at the end of World War I, and the communists, like the Bolsheviks, took over Germany during the 1920s, and that was when Germany became hyper degenerate, brothels everywhere, child brothels, animal brothels. The creation of the trans movement, John Money, he was the first person. He forced those two twin boys. He made one of them become a girl, and then he forced them to have sex with one another, and then they both ended up killing themselves. John Money, that was all Germany at that time. All of this stuff happened in Germany during the 1920s, and it led to 1933 when the Nazis became the majority party. They finally overtook the Communist Party in 1933, and they appointed Hitler to be the prime minister. The chancellor is what it was called. This is the exact same system, or very similar to like Israel that we see now, the multi-party system, where the largest party picks the leader of the legislature. And then there was a president of Germany who just died like right after he became chancellor. And Hitler said, all right, we're going to merge the office of the president with the office of the chancellor. And that's how they created the Fuhrer. So then the rest is history. So when Chris Paul says we are kind of like seeing the same thing, I think he's right. I think the whole woke thing maybe was always meant to die off because it's so ridiculous and so stupid. Right. And they're all useful idiots. All of them are just useful idiots.
It was meant to maybe piss us off and create the
Weimar Germany effect. And then exactly. And then the new dialectic that's supposed to emerge is like Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA versus Nick Fuentes and the Groypers. That's the new political spectrum in America that we're looking at. And again, it's all focused on Israel. The whole thing revolves around Israel and whether you support it or oppose it. And you need to be aware of the fact that Israel loves people who oppose them, because when you oppose them, you are justifying their militant disposition. You are justifying them saying, we need a larger national security apparatus. We need more defense budget because we have these anti-Semites over that hill right there that want to kill all of us. And so if we aren't armed to the teeth and ready to fight at all moments of the day, these people are going to come kill us. We need more. Give us more. That is the narrative all the time. And guess what? Peace in the Middle East is right around the corner. They need a new boogeyman.
Yep. Absolutely. And this was Chris's post. He said 8 years of Obama followed by 8 years of Hillary was meant to be the Weimar phase. Then Con Inc. neocon thing would have played their part in the Nazi story before blaming it on nationalists, populists, and Christians. History repeats because there is only one human nature and only one narrative playbook. Speaking of the narrative. And just to be, well, not to be clear, but yeah, sort of maybe for anybody who's kind of not getting fully the other side of the dialectic there, I think what you're saying, and I think what Chris is saying, to put this a little differently, is the woke Weimar phase, the absurdity of it, to your point, is so ridiculous that yes, it was going to push real organic pushback. It was going to cultivate real organic pushback to that in specifically young American men. I'm one of these. I've said before on shows with Brad, I'm a big genre guy, big genre fiction guy, and that they made all that shit gay. And it weaponized making that stuff gay, making books gay, making the publishing industry gay, making the video gaming industry gay. And gay, I'm using gay like they literally made it gay. They made it feminist. They made it the force is female, all this kind of stuff. They made it hyper diverse and DEI. That weaponized a lot of men of this generation over the last 10 years. It pushed them to the chance, which you and I talked about last time we were on the show. It pushed them looking for voices who were their voices. So the one side of the dialectic pushed people organically away from it. And the other side of the dialectic, in this case, to Chris's point, Con Inc., etc., is there to scoop them up and say, we understand you. We know how you feel, right? Those wokies, the trannies are out to get you. We understand you. And we need to push back on that. And then when that fails, you get the more extreme side. I'm using Fuentes as an example, but there's many others. The Groypers, all that kind of thing of we really do need a resurgent Christian nationalism. We need to kick everybody out. We need to mandate religion. We need to, ban not gay marriage. I know that's a big topic, but we need to outlaw homosexuality, stuff like that. There's people that maybe think that that's right? But my point is that that's not really what the United States was founded on. That might be my liberal speaking, but I did believe I was a classical liberal, and I still do. And that side of the dialectic is very attractive, and that is what led to the Third Reich type of thing. And when we say this, when Chris says this, when Ghost says this, and when I say this, we're not saying that we think MAGA is going to become Nazis, but they are going to be framed as Nazis. And the further you can push people toward that dialectic of actually wanting the kind of influencers and politicians those influencers push, when you really get to the desperation phase where you want those people to come in and be like, just fuck it. We tried to be nice. Dark MAGA, right? That was going along. Those guys started that years ago, dark MAGA. And we used to joke about it, but it's not a joke to them. It's no, they're joking about dark MAGA, but they're not joking about it, actually. And the reason is not because they're ultra-based and red-pilled. The reason is they want that to become the brand for you. They want to cast you as the extreme Christian nationalist version of dark MAGA that the media has been hoping you would become. But you didn't become that because that's not what we are. But there is a timeline when those young men in particular do become that. They could become that. And look no further than World War II, right? Leaving all conspiracies aside of like what really started it, this dialectic had a lot to do with it. You get the very charismatic leader. You get all these things that the establishment wants you to think Donald Trump is. But that wasn't the movement. The movement wasn't Hitler. The movement was the German people and the German youth who endorsed a lot of this shit. And it's like, why did they endorse it? Because they got pushed so far into the dialectic that they thought that the people who were ready, they're like, yeah, we're ready to kind of to take this stuff back. They thought they were on their side, and they were just feeding them right into the Prussian wood chipper on the other side of the dialectic.
Yeah. And again, that's what this all is. This is all dialectics, and Trump is a master of stepping outside of the dialectic and operating outside of it.
Yeah.
And that's really the reason that he caught on 10 years ago. That's why he became like so politically relevant so quickly. I do think it's interesting that the day one, what they said about him, the very first thing they branded him was Hitler, literally Hitler. And then obviously I think is going after people. He's going after Jewish billionaires. I mean, let's just like call it what it is. There are Jewish billionaires that are being targeted in all of this ultimately. Yeah. And I think that is why they branded him with this day one, is because they said one day he's going to come after us. And when he does, we want to
seeded it.
Yeah, we've seeded the Hitler thing. And so instead what he's done is he's zigged when they thought he was going to zag. He did the thing that media MSM should have done to him in 2015 if they wanted to destroy him. He bear hugged Israel and has basically made it completely synonymous with President Trump, with his brand. Israel is totally synonymous. Nobody could ever deny that, could ever take that away from him at this point. He is the Israel first president, right? In the minds of his pro-Israel fans and his anti-Israel fans. It's like he is the Israel first president, right?
So now we're just gonna slap a new base over there, and on that might be for a later topic, but maybe we'll just hit it very quickly right now. To the point you just made of Trump being the most pro-Israel president.
Yeah,
I see this. This is a perfect example of what you're saying. So from the narrative perspective, this looks like capitulation to Israel. U.S. mulls major new base near Gaza for stabilization operations, right? So people can frame this as Trump shilling for Israel, Trump the Zionist, whatever. If you look at these things, I think more from our perspective, you go, who's that base really there to keep an eye on? And what region is it really meant to stabilize? And which player in that region does not want stabilization? Then it's like, it's kind of funny. Sometimes these things are hiding in plain sight where you're like, yeah, he's got pure narrative shield. He's got perfect narrative shielding regarding the Israel faction. Meanwhile, putting pieces in place to make sure that they're not able to do what they've been doing for the last 70 years.
Well, it goes back to a question that I posited on a stream in December of 2022, but before I was on Badlands. Were the Abraham Accords created to protect Israel from the Arabs, or, as I posited, were they created to protect the Arabs from Israel? And that's what I think they were. And that would explain why Netanyahu tried to back out of them the night before they were supposed to be finalized in August of 2020. Where Ron Dermer tried to call the White House and say, hey, you know what? We got an election coming up. This isn't a great time for us. I think we're probably just going to, just hold off on this for maybe a few more months. And then Trump picked up the phone and said, put Bibi on the phone right fucking now. And then,
I was busy.
And reportedly just ripped him a new asshole and said, if you're not on this phone call tomorrow with all the boys, with all the Arabs to finalize this thing, you're a dead man. And he was there with bells on, and they signed it a month later. And so, the Abraham Accords, I do think were designed to protect the Muslims from Israel. That's what I think the whole point of it is. And to your point, this base they're going to build, they're going to staff it with Turkish troops, which Netanyahu is still saying, I'm not letting any Turks, no dirty Turks are coming into this, this house. And Trump's like, no, actually they are going to come in there. And they're going to
just play ball.
Yeah. And why do we want Turkish troops in Gaza? For the same reason we want Turkish troops in Syria. Because if the IDF fucks around and attacks Turkey, guess what? Article 5, that means Israel wakes up the next morning at war with the entire European continent, plus Canada and the United States. That is the essence of a pincer move against Netanyahu.
So I want to hit on that note. I want to hit over the next hour 3 pincers, if we can.
Yep.
Venezuela, Syria, Ukraine. Not just Syria, but the Middle East, we could say. And that's a big topic, but Syria in particular.
Syria is like like where it's all happening. So yes.
And Syria is exciting because we fucking nailed it. And you guys remember us nailing it back in 2023. So it's also the most comedic of the 3 theaters, which I think is pretty great. And in light of the topic of pincer paradox, we've talked about pincers before, right? But I thought it might be good because these 3 pincers are going on right now. Ukraine's been going on forever, but I think the pincer is heating up, and I've nailed some things recently on that as well that we can get into. But Venezuela in particular is a big topic right now. And I think it's good to sort of flesh out what we're talking about when we say that we think this is a sovereign alliance pincer. Specifically, I would suggest that there are strong hints that this is a pincer between the United States and Russia on the deep state, right? So to lay this out, all 3 of the pincers we're going to look at tonight, and we probably have, not identical readings of what's going on here, but pretty similar, Ghost and I. The reason I wanted to structure it this way is that my argument is that all 3, Venezuela, Syria, and Ukraine, you can see the gravity of a U.S. and a Russian gravitational force that are aligning to squeeze globalist, deep state, or regime factions or proxies within these places. And the other point would be, in all 3 of these places, Venezuela, Syria, and Ukraine, I would argue that we have either an our boy or a bro. And we have distinguished those in the past. As a quick refresher, when we say our boy Zelensky, our boy Yuhu, Chris Paul, we are alleging that that person is not a good person, but that they are leveraged or caught by the Sovereign Alliance and so are acting in accordance with these sovereign pincers. A sovereign bro, is somebody who is part of the Sovereign Alliance. And these are theories.
An earnest sovereign leader.
Yeah. Earnest sovereign leader from the beginning. Now, these are our theories on these things. Yes. I would say that of the 3, you've got 1, I feel confident, our boy. You've got 1, I feel confident, sovereign bro. And I think the third one, you could go either way. I lean in our boy. I lean basically Slarity, or whatever his name was, Trevor Slarity from Iron Man 3. That's my reading of that one. But anyway, let's start with Venezuela. What do you read of going on in Venezuela? Did you have something before that?
Yeah, well, before we go there, I just there was another point that I think feeds into this. So in the last segment, we were talking about the dialectics, and we were talking about where everything was going and how it was shifting more towards. I think it's a little clownish that you have people who are yelling at us saying, stop focusing on this infighting, stop focusing on this conversation between Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes, and go back to the us versus them, like the Democrat, like this dead body over here, the Democrats, and let's go back to fighting them, right? We were always supposed to come to this next place. This is the next hill. Like, we've moved away from that hill. That is the old battlefield that we've already won that battle. That battle's dead. Joe Biden killed the Democrat brand. Their
brand is dead.
The brand is
dead.
Yep. It's dead. If you are still arguing online with people about trannies and woke stuff, you are literally leagues behind us. Like, come catch up with the army. We are marching on to the next battlefield. The next battlefield is the Charlie Kirk, Nick Fuentes battlefield, because at the heart of that is Israel. That's the heart of that. Now, they wanted to set up a fake dialectic, a fake thing, and give you the 2 sides. Are you a Nazi or are you a Zionist? Which one is it? And I think Trump has sidestepped the whole thing. By the way, all of that plays into, I think, everything we're going to talk about here,
Yeah.
including Venezuela.
Right. So for Venezuela, we've got, the latest. I'll just show one of the recent headlines here. We've got, where is it? Hegseth announces new military campaign, Operation Southern Spear. New major U.S. military campaign, buildup of naval assets and troops in the Southern Caribbean. Trump ordered action, and the Department of War is delivering. So, we've got all this stuff going on, right? We've got military readiness posture in the Caribbean. And, we've got, the seeding is in place for what we're going to be told are kinetic operations in the Caribbean, specifically Venezuela, targeting cartels. So how do you read the build-up, the story so far, and kind of what do you think's really going on in Venezuela and in the Caribbean, and why do you think it's being translated the way it is from the U.S. side, from the Trump side?
Well, I think it's really important to remember that the enemy is inside the tent, like the enemy is inside the wire. And so the GOP, who I think is the enemy, they want to convince everybody that the enemy is out there. The enemy is a foreign country. The enemy is a foreign leader. The enemy is whatever, right? This brown person over here who doesn't look like the average American, right? Who speaks a different language or has an accent or is a different religion or whatever. That's the enemy right there. We have to go fight them. It's really, really stupid. It's really contrived. It's neocon 101. I hate to say boomerism, but that's kind of what it is. And it's really stupid. Now, the last time I came on, or one of the last times I came on the show, I walked you through all of the arithmetic about how Nicolas Maduro actually appears to be helping Donald Trump. So
spoiler alert, we believe that Maduro is more likely to be an earnest Sovereign Alliance member rather than an our boy.
Yeah.
If you're kind of where our stance is at.
If your worldview is that we are at the heart of this movement, we are against oligarchs who have engaged in neo-imperialism and have subjugated the whole world by controlling oil rights, mineral rights, rare earth rights, and exploiting the people by using child slavery and all that kind of stuff to create artificial scarcity, Malthusianism, and drive population decline and all that kind of bullshit. Maduro has done more to take these people down than any other leader, I would argue, in the world, and it's because of those lawsuits he filed in 2017 or 2018. He filed them in the Southern District of Florida, but more importantly, filing them in Geneva. The Geneva ones are the ones that led to the European districts or jurisdictions all going after these people, and a lot of them are in prison right now. Alex Beard, who is the most powerful of all of them, the CEO of Glencore, was forced to resign in 2019. We later found out because of a bunch of scandals that were going to come out. He was arrested August 2024 in Britain. The Biden administration, DOJ, by the way, was like a part of that.
Yeah,
and that's a big continuity of government proof, in my opinion.
Our boy Blue, the first our boy,
for sure. And then Beard is now being prosecuted, and who's helping prosecute him is the American DOJ, the Brazilian DOJ under Lula. Lula has been a big player in this as well.
Yeah.
So you have all these left wing communist, socialist leaders in South America who ostensibly are anti-imperialism, they're anti-capitalism, they're anti-oligarch, because that's the essence of like the collectivist mindset, right?
Yeah.
Maduro's one of them, Lula's another one, and Gustavo Petro's another one, the president of Colombia. So Lula, in my opinion, is an our boy because he was. I went and looked this up.
He's the Brazilian Biden.
Yeah, he's Brazilian Biden. They literally, what's his name? Bolsonaro literally released his ass from prison.
Yeah,
like he was in prison for rigging elections, basically, and willingly released him from prison. He immediately went and formed like an NGO or whatever, like a nonprofit, and then just started his comeback. And
won a
then
fake
he,
election, had their own J6 on J6.
Was like, oh no!
Yeah.
They even had a Q shaman.
Literally a rerun.
They had a Brazilian Latino Q shaman guy. Like they did everything. They just they made a Brazilian Latino woke version of J6.
Right. Like 1 year on a 1 year delay.
Yeah, on a 1 year delay. And then Bolsonaro ran off and lived at Mar-a-Lago, kind of like Assad did with Putin. And then Lula comes in and just starts being a communist in Brazil.
By the way, this all ends with Maduro, Assad, and Bolso and all these guys just having the greatest pad in Russia.
It might be.
That's what I think. Probably
that could be where it goes. That could be where it goes. But Lula's DOJ was helping the Biden DOJ go after all these oligarchs, not just Alex Beard, but there was a number of other ones. And another one was, by the way, what was his name? Executive Order 13818. Dan Gertler.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Dan Gertler, this guy. Let me share my screen. The guy that I've talked about.
Map, Mrs. Wright. I don't know if she's still up. She was wondering when would be the first appearance of the map. 10:52 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Pretty late on the map. He was jonesing for a while. But there you go.
This guy. Yeah. So here's Gertler, and Gertler was listed just to connect the dots. He's listed in Executive Order 13818. Here's the annex for it. That was signed on December 20th, 2017. This is the famous one about blocking people who were involved in serious human rights abuse or corruption. 13 people were listed in the original annex, and number 3 on there is Dan Gertler, nationality Israeli with alternative nationality, Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, again, this is where I can reinforce the speculation that a lot of people that you and John has been very clear. This executive order does not allow them to seize anything. It's only freezing. It's only freezing. So if you're involved in the human trafficking and all that, like child trafficking, this executive order does not allow them to seize anything. They only freeze it. So this was 2017. It took 6 or 7 years to actually get this to come. I think it was 6 years for this to come into a court of law. And it wasn't even in America. It was in Britain. And it was 2022 and 2023. And the prosecuting team was a British prosecutor, a Biden prosecutor, who's the Biden DOJ, and a Brazilian prosecutor sent by Lula. And it was a number of cases where they end up stripping the mineral rights because they're going after each little, all right, the mineral rights for copper, the mineral rights for coltan. These are all different companies that are
all the tech oligarchs, by the way, that Trump recently brought to heel in August at a dinner. And that is a rerun that we saw this past week, if anybody caught it, where he had the financial institution leaders over to the White House for the same style dinner. You can read those probably as capitulations under the gravity of the same framework. So here's another article. This is April 2024. That's of course, here's MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. This is Tanoon bin Zayed. This would be the brother of Mohammed bin Zayed, who's the president of the UAE. And it's explaining how these guys the Arabs are coming in and buying up all the rights to places, the mineral rights for the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, the only reason that these rights are even up for purchase, they're up for auction, is because they were stripped away from this guy, from Dan Gertler, because Dan Gertler had a monopoly. He paid Joseph Kabila $360 million. This guy was the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo from 2001 until 2018. Paid him $360 million to get to have a monopoly over all of the rights for the minerals in Eastern Congo. Present day, the estimated value of all those minerals, $24 trillion, over $24 trillion. By the way, most of those minerals, they're all
completely necessary for high-tech manufacturing.
Yep.
And 50 to 75% of all of the minerals that in the world for manufacturing come from this location. And so what was happening is that they would...
It should be like the richest region in the world.
Oh, for sure. Like multiple times, like by multiple orders of magnitude. It should be the wealthiest nation in the world by multiple orders of magnitude.
Yeah.
And so right now, I think there's a big like puzzle right now, like, you know, a Rubik's cube of how do you detangle this thing
right
without creating a total power vacuum, because whoever controls this region is going to control the future. By the way, this is the M23, like the Rwanda DRC conflict. That's at the heart of this whole thing is this. That's
and on the borders, the gravity of this is when sometimes we talk about the land bridge idea. I know you and Chris have talked about that as well with Russia. The Russians seem to be a kinetic player in Central Africa against regime proxies. And China and the Belt and Road Initiative have also been a stabilizing force in this region. So this is where like people get very triggered, especially over the weekend when I said the Belt and Road Initiative. I don't know if it was started under altruistic reasons, and I would guess it was not, but the Xi Jinping version of the Belt and Road Initiative is a stabilizing force in this region. The Wagner Group and Vladimir Putin's military is a stabilizing kinetic force here. You guys may be tangentially aware, or if you watch Ghost Show, you're very aware of the French have not been having a good time in Africa in the last few years. They've been hightailing it out of there in a lot of situations. And another institution that is playing a huge role in this region, I don't know how much they come up in your research, but I would guess fairly often, is the New Development Bank, the NDB of BRICS. So a lot of these upstart nations where we see these very violent, but actually not violent at all, overthrows backed by Russia, financed by China, where you've got these young, Burkina Faso was one of them, where you've got these young leaders coming in, they're then being backed by the BRICS New Development Bank. So anyway, just it does, to your point about it's a hell of a knot to untangle, but this is where the Sovereign Alliance comes in. Donald Trump can't go over there and start making moves, you know, in the open. The American people don't want to be funding this shit. So you've got Russia and China that are going in there and doing it. And you know who's calling out Russia and China for doing this from a negative framing most of all in the West? It's not liberals, it's neocons.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and so just to like summarize what I was just getting at is, here's the start, right? December 20th, 2017, freezing the property of this guy Dan Gertler, and then the finish, and you know, I say that it's not quite the finish, but this is him losing those minerals. This is just one example. The International Holding Company, IRH, which is explained in this is the article that explains that the UAE and the Saudis set up this thing together called the IRH. It's a holding company to acquire a lot of these minerals. And here is an article from March 2024 of them completing a 51% stake acquisition of Zambia's Mopani copper mine. That's just one example, and that one's not even in the DRC. That's in Zambia, but it falls under Mopani, which is one of these Glencore assets that's connected to Dan Gertler. So lots and lots of lawfare, lots and lots of legal tanglings where they had to strip away these rights from these companies. And then people who had the war chest to do it, the Arabs were the ideal partner to do that, come in and buy up the rights, and now they own the rights as opposed to one guy, Dan Gertler, and his faction or whatever. So the reason this is all relevant is because, as we went through last time, Maduro filed that lawsuit against all those Glencore executives and Trafigura and Vital and all them. Those people are all being prosecuted. We went through all that. What's interesting is, since I came on the last time, I've now learned that there is another guy who has been doing the exact same thing, just on the other side of the globalist cartel, because the globalist cartel is two halves. There's the corporate side that does all the things I just described. They control the rare earth, they control the oil, they control the gold. And the DRC is really the heart of a lot of that stuff. Venezuela is another big one because it's the largest oil reserve in the world. But the other half of that is the drug cartels, the people who actually run the guns, run the drugs, traffic the humans, traffic the kids, harvest the organs.
That's the manpower.
Yeah, boots on the ground kind of stuff. You got to go after that. And that's what Trump is purportedly been going after here in the U.S. or here in Venezuela, right? That's what this whole Gerald Ford carrier strike group approaching Venezuela is all about. What's interesting is if you go back, because now you have Gustavo Petro, he's the president of Colombia. He was sanctioned by Trump a couple weeks ago. He's now basically like equivalent to Maduro. Like Trump has called him like the head of the cartel, all this stuff. All right. So, and then here is the Treasury Department, Scott Bessent putting out the post on October 24th. Treasury is sanctioning the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, for his role in the global illicit drug trade. Under President Petro, cocaine production in Colombia has exploded to record highs. Petro has provided narco-terrorist organizations with benefits. Under President Trump's leadership, we will not tolerate Colombia trafficking drugs into our nation and poisoning Americans. So I went and down this rabbit hole because I heard this guy speak at the UN, and he gave the most base speech I could imagine. He came in and he said, well, I think it's kind of funny that y'all are up here puffing out your chest talking about going to war with the cartels. Does that mean you're going to be going to war with Washington, D.C.? Because half the people up there are on the cartel payroll. And I was like, holy shit, this guy is awesome. Who is he? And so I went and looked into him. Colombia was totally anti-Maduro up until 2022 when this guy wins the election. His background, he's like a leftist. He grew up in a militia when he was younger, like a left-wing militia. So he has the bona fides of being a left-wing radical, and Trump can play the kayfabe there and say, "Oh, well, this guy's
bona fides, Ghost."
Well, the bona fides is what is what how I said. So yeah. But anyway,
that's what they say in Colombia.
That's right, the bona fides, right? The bona fides. So here's an article from 11 months ago: Colombia airstrike against drug cartel, 4 killed. And then I started just finding. I mean, I found probably 30 or 40 articles. I just included some of the greatest hits here. Here's Colombia's top drug cartel in decline, may lay down arms. That's from 2 months ago. Here's Colombia arrest the Medellin cartel founder Carlos Leder. This guy was literally the partner to Pablo Escobar. If you go watch any documentary, like the Netflix show about Pablo Escobar, this guy is always a character in those movies because Carlos Leder is one of the most famous names associated with the Medellin drug cartel. Here's March 2025, arrested and extradited to the United States. And then you have here is 2022, April 2022, Colombia extraditing the drug kingpin Otonio to the U.S. Here is from May of 2025, Colombia arrested over 200 suspects, members of the cartel who were accused of paying their recruits $3,500 apiece to kill police officers. Here's from a month later, another 200 people arrested, suspected members of the Gulf Clan. The Gulf Clan is the largest cocaine cartel currently operating in Colombia. Here is from February of this year, Gustavo Petro and his generals holding a press conference where they are explaining that the Mexican Sinaloa drug cartel is actually the head of the ELN guerrilla group. Now, the ELN is a group called the the National Liberation Army, something like that.
Yeah.
It was formed in 1964. It claims to be inspired by Pablo Escobar and Che Guevara. Basically, it's like a left-wing guerrilla group that operates in Colombia against the government and has been, again, for 50 or for 60 years now, 61 years they've been operating. Tons of problems, all that. This guy, Gustavo Petro, held a press conference last February where his generals came out and they said, this ELN group that has been operating for 61 years is actually operating at the behest of the Mexican drug cartel. And the whole reason they exist is to secure the trafficking routes from Colombia to Mexico. It's the whole reason they exist. And we're now going to go after them. And so
now, did you see on that note, before you move on, shenanigans? Let me just swap this out for a minute. Shenanigans at the Royal Palace, National Palace in Mexico yesterday. Now, this was under the guise of mass protest and mobilization against Claudia Sheinbaum, who I did not think was an Our Girl until I saw that.
I don't think. Well,
and I'm just keeping it open because I'm not. Well, and I guess this is where there's a lot of nuance in the Our Boy, Our Girl conversations because Trump has threatened the Sinaloa cartel. You're talking about the Sinaloa cartel. The people are reportedly mobilizing against Sheinbaum for a lack of enforcement against the Sinaloa cartel. That could all be true. It's also possible that when we see mass mobilizations, these are NGO mobilizations because if action is being taken against the Sinaloa cartel or is being allowed to be taken in Mexico, is there an NGO network trying to make sure that stops? That's why it's like you start to go crazy when you look at these kinds of things. But that's all I meant by I don't think Sheinbaum is our girl. I more mean, are the people mad that nothing's being done about the Sinaloa cartel? Or is an NGO mad that something is being done about the Sinaloa cartel? Anytime I see a mass mobilization now, I can't help but look at Noah Harari and all like anytime we see, usually when we see a mass mobilization like that, there's NGOs behind it. Doesn't always mean it's not organic either, but there's definitely, this is another example. Mexico is really, as you said, it's the root into the US's problems. So that's where it's got to end.
Yeah. So that protest, what started that was actually the murder. And this was all on video of a member of the Mexican parliament. And this guy was like beloved. He was some really young guy in his 20s who was openly very vocal, explaining how the cartels work, explaining how corrupt the whole government was, how the government was in bed with the cartels. He had been advocating openly for more protection. He's like, I need more protection because they're trying to kill me, over and over and over again. And then, of course, he was like publicly appearing at some event, and some guy rolls up on a scooter with a machine gun and took him out. And so then that got the youth out on the street to be like, wait a minute, this is the one guy who was actually like advocating for us, who was a true populist, who Sheinbaum did not like. He did not like Sheinbaum. They did not get along. Now, Sheinbaum might be our girl. I don't know. Like, it could be.
Or just, I just think she's a lame duck in terms of Frozen,
I mean,
basically.
It seems to me like the guy who was in there before, who purportedly is her like mentor, right? He was the communist. I forget his name. But he was a communist. Is like that's the branding on him. Of course, our State Department calls anyone who disagrees with them a communist. Doesn't matter what you are. You are a communist if you don't go along with the program. But Trump always talks about how they got along very, very well. Him and this guy got along famously, despite their politics being very different. He worked with Trump on building the wall. He deployed 30,000 Mexican troops along the border to protect this is during the first term, to protect the U.S. border from the Mexican side. Remember, Trump bragged about that.
Yeah.
All of that ended under Sheinbaum. She pulled all that back. She undid all of that. She now will not negotiate with Trump. She won't negotiate a tariff. She won't. She says that Trump is an asshole and he's a bad guy and we can't work with him. She won't let the U.S. military on Mexican soil to go after the cartels. She says Mexico will not be used by the U.S. military to stage operations against the cartels, etc. So, as far as I can tell, it seems like she was brought in by the regime
to stop the bleeding.
to stop the
They're
bleeding.
bleeding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's what it seems like. Now maybe that was
Mhm.
allowed. Maybe, I think this is all game theory. I think
Yeah, yeah.
I think a lot of these people come in like intending to do something, and then
Right.
and the white hats are like, oh yeah, perfect, do that because that's going to actually help us.
Right. There's a million pincers on the game board, and I think she and what she is representative of are in one of them. And to your point about the U.S. border and Trump's actions there, Delta Force operators that he's been talking about, all that kind of stuff, that's what we're not going to start seeing it, but we're going to start maybe being able to discern probably a lot of operations that have already been going on, and more that this is all building public mandate, right? We talk about mandate cultivation all the time. And usually we're talking about it from the perspective of the American people. What are they willing to endorse or go along with? But, what you're seeing maybe in that clip in Mexico is mandate cultivation there. I've dropped an anecdote in the past. When I was 21, I spent some time down in Mexico City, actually, and I went to that national monument area, which is very impressive. But I spent some time there training with a boxing team, and I remember I got in that big argument with one of the boxers at a bar, political argument. And at the time, I wasn't really conservative. This was before Trump, and I remember he was pissed because he was talking about the U.S. being the police of the world, all the usual anti-U.S. shit, right? Anti-regime type of stuff, which I get. And I was a liberal. But he almost turned me into a neocon or in that conversation, because I remember arguing with him and saying, well, we're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't, with how you guys operate. And ultimately, we got to the root of the matter. The heart of it was that this was 2011 that I was there. And the cartel violence, which has not stopped, was really in that span of years under the Obama regime, was getting out of control, in your face, broad daylight type of stuff like you're referring to now with these mayors. That was going on back in 2009, 10, 11, 12. Some big incident had happened while I was in Mexico. It's all gruesome stuff, what the cartels would do. But the Mexican people, many of them, were furious that the United States was not doing anything about it. And I thought the reason we were arguing is because I was saying the second we put American boots in Mexico, the whole world is going to accuse us of regime change operations and being the police of the world. And he actually agreed with that. And we shared a wooden bowl of mezcal over it, and got drunk together. But, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, I think that when we're seeing this, I think Trump is playing this mandate cultivation game, not just with the American people, but also with the people of Mexico, of saying, like, how much is too much? How much is enough? When are you going to say uncle? When are you going to cry uncle? When are you going to empower not just your military, but our military to do something about this?
Yeah. And no, you're absolutely right. And to that point, why not just make it a regime change? Like from the White House perspective, you know what? Yeah. Let's just announce we're doing it a regime change operation.
Yeah.
Like make it.
Who do you want?
Make it a media event,
right?
Because then that's going to anger everybody, and everyone's going to come running to scream at us about how we're a bunch of neocon fuckfaces. And that's going to make the whole thing go viral. And so that is Trumpomania in a nutshell. Like, instead of like trying to do it in some convoluted, like, well, we're actually the good guys, we promise. No. Let's just be the bad guys. Let's embrace the heel role. Let's be The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson from 1999 at WrestleMania. And let's just tell everybody, can you smell what The Rock is cooking, you jabroni? Yeah. You jabroni candy ass. You are all a bunch of jabroni candy asses, and we are going to just...
Your choice is to get killed by Delta Force or fight Elon Musk in space in a zero-gravity octagon, and we're not offering you a middle ground, brother. You're going to take one of those options, and that's what's coming for you.
Yeah. So here's the proof that all this is bullshit. Okay. So here's the president giving the speech I was talking about, right? Here is let's see. The Venezuelan government threatening Trinidad and Tobago if they allow the U.S. to operate there. But this is the one that I realized I was like, holy shit, this is even funnier than I thought it was. While this is all happening, while like Trump is getting rid of the sanctionless guy, is saying mean things about Gustavo Petro in public, is totally tearing down Maduro in public, this was actually happening in Qatar. It says this is September 19th. Colombia opens peace talks with the country's largest criminal organization. The Colombian government has launched peace talks with Clan del Golfo, this is the Gulf Clan, the country's largest and most powerful criminal organization, said officials. The talks began Thursday in Doha, the capital of Qatar, with the initial phase focused on building trust between the parties and implementing pilot projects on 3 regions where the group is most active. Alvaro Jimenez, the head of the government delegation, and Luis Armando Perez, representing Clan del Golfo, signed a joint statement formally declaring the start of what they called a peace process. And the only reason that this even like slipped through, and I was even able to find anything on it, is because the government of Qatar put out a statement about this. Here's their statement from September 18th. The state of Qatar announces its mediation in the peace-building process between the government of the Republic of Colombia and the self-proclaimed Guatanista Army of Colombia, reaffirming its steadfast commitment. They're referring to the Clan del Golfo. And basically with their 4 days of negotiation, they're going to surrender. They're going to turn over all their weapons, and they're going to disband. This is the largest cocaine cartel operating in Colombia, where all the cocaine comes from. Yeah. There is no cocaine in Venezuela. There are cocaine cartel criminals in Venezuela. According to Colonel McGregor, there's 8,000 of them living in the hills around Caracas. But according to McGregor, he said it's actually Maduro, despite the public narrative, it's actually Maduro is the one going after those people. And Maduro and McGregor is the one saying that now, not Badlands media. So it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny that you get to this place. But here's the Colombia, while the UN is meeting in the background and all that, and like the focus is all on Gaza, they're meeting in Doha, saying, "Hey, we need to get these Colombian cartels who we've been bombing and arresting for the past year. Now they're going to finally surrender. They're going to disband. They're going to stop operating." And oh, by the way, Colombian President Petro suggests Qatar could mediate U.S. military actions off Venezuela. He's like, "Hey, these Qataris are actually pretty great. Y'all, maybe Maduro and Trump should come hug it out in Doha."
And as you and I have talked about for a couple of years now, one of the big there's a rehabilitation tour coming in Western culture for Middle Eastern culture. And that is largely being done through sports and gaming. And we've talked about it with the Saudis. So if you guys want to know who we're going to be friends with, just look at the UFC's event calendar. And no, I'm not joking. So they went to Riyadh earlier this year. They went to the UAE earlier this year, which they've done before. And next weekend, November 22nd, where are they going? Doha. So just sliding that in there. They've never been to Doha before, and now they're hitting Riyadh and the UAE, and they're hitting Doha just all in a row, just fucking randomly in 2025. That's the market the UFC's really got to break out in. What they really mean is that's the market, the American market, that the Middle East needs to break out in terms of starting to cultivate some of that, easing of tensions.
So here's like a little more signal. You remember when Trump was in like Southeast Asia, inking deals, like writing checks, inking deals. In first it was Malaysia, then it was Japan, then it was South Korea, and then of course he met with Xi. While he was meeting with Xi, you had this happen. This is October 28th. So Gustavo Petro goes to he does his own Donald Trump Middle East tour. He goes to Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Qatar over like that same time that Trump was in Southeast Asia. Now there was this big FII, which is that big group that Trump and Don Jr. went and met with in Miami last year. It's like a Saudi
Yeah.
U.S. investment group. They did another one in Riyadh, so he goes and meets there. Is
that the one, Ghost, where Donald Trump Jr. or no, Eric Trump did a keynote speech on how his family's biggest conviction in the years ahead was in Bitcoin?
Yes, I think
was
it was.
that. Oh,
yes,
so
one in Miami.
So he's endorsing the thing that Epstein, is it Epstein now created? What's the thing right now? Epstein created Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think it's Epstein.
XRP is going to save us.
It's either Epstein is Satoshi is either Satoshi or that Epstein like bankrolled Satoshi.
Right.
It's hard to keep up with what the counter narrative.
You got to do your research, Eric.
Yeah,
you're pushing Epstein's crypto.
Anyway. Yeah. But so here's Gustavo Petro putting out this post October 28th. He says the most important meeting that will continue tomorrow with His Royal Highness MBS. And then, of course, he puts out the post about the meeting, saying here, and the big announcement they come out with, actually, it's really funny, is they're teaming up. They're creating a new cartel. It is going to be a Colombian, Saudi Arabian coffee cartel where they're gonna because Arabica coffee is like a really big deal, but like Colombia is like where the best coffee comes from.
Right.
So now instead of exporting cocaine around the world, they're going to be exporting caffeine, and they're going to become like the it's their coffee and their coca, because they grow coca beans in Colombia too.
Coke's coming back.
Yeah, so they're bringing coca to Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia is now going to be like exclusively offering coffee, because that's another thing in Arabia is like. There's videos of Trump and Melania arriving for the sword dance, and the first thing you do is, you get the little shot glass of coffee and you take the shot of coffee. Like that's a big deal. Trump always just pours it out because he doesn't drink coffee. But all of those little rituals they're doing now is going to be done with Colombian coffee. Yeah. And then after all of this, he then Saudi Arabia, the same day he's hosting it, the next meeting, he walks out of this meeting and he meets with the vice president of China. So,
by the way, guys, badlands.substack.com. All these takes are in the news brief every day. I want to try to hit a couple other pincers before we hand the show off, but I did want to hit a couple of things on this Maduro thing. Yep. We've hit a lot of it. That's great, but specifically about the pincer here. I'm going to show just two headlines back to back. Who is in the pincer and who is helping to close the pincer, and a lot of what Ghost laid out there. To keep that in mind with a couple of headlines here, right? So from the normie layers of the collective mind, it's Trump v. Maduro, right? The Americans are going after Maduro. Maybe Maduro will end up not being there at the end of this. We don't know how the storyline is going to play out, right? And Ghost is laying out how there are joint operations. Essentially, there is a pincer against the cartels here. That's kind of our argument. Maduro has been fighting these cartels. There's a ton of sauce to that. Trump is now going after these cartels. They're going after them in multiple theaters, right? Well, look who is really upset about this. Oops, I pressed the wrong button. So that was anticlimactic. Look who is really upset about this. The UK has cut intelligence sharing with the US related to what they say is illegal Venezuela action. Just as the USS General Ford Carrier Strike Group entered Caribbean waters on Tuesday, it's been revealed that the UK has made the unprecedented and provocative move of cutting off intelligence sharing with the United States related to suspected drug trafficking vessels off Venezuela. They believe they do not want to be complicit in ongoing U.S. military strikes, as the UK believes the action is illegal, amounting to extrajudicial killings. So, who is in the pincer? Drug cartels? The United Kingdom. The United fucking Kingdom. A Five Eyes nation is not going to share intelligence with the U.S. military because they think killing narco-terrorists is illegal? Who are the narco-terrorists? Who funds the narco-terrorists? Who are we really blowing up in the Caribbean? I think we are blowing up narco-terrorists. I think we are going after drug cartels. It's just that the United Kingdom is funding them and is part of them because this is as Ghost said earlier in the show, in Africa, a different theater, the regime, the globalist regime, funnels all of its money, washes its money, and enforces its power projection capabilities using these cartels. These cartels are soldiers of the globalist regime, and the United Kingdom is the seat of the globalist regime. So I thought that was notable. And then one more thing that you can react to. I got a kick out of this one, which sets us up for our next brief pincer. Maduro is open to a managed exit if Trump provides amnesty. Did you see this?
No, I haven't seen this. This is great.
Maduro, this is November 7th. Maduro is open to a managed exit if Trump provides amnesty. Putin on standby with military aid. Okay, so just to lay this out, we think Maduro is closing a pincer on the cartels. I think the cartels are a kinetic power projection arm of the globalists. The seat of globalist power is really upset about Trump going after the cartels. Trump is really upset at Nicolas Maduro, just like he was really upset at Bashar al-Assad in Syria. But he's going to let Assad go, right? And I bet you he's going to let Maduro go. Where did Assad end up, Ghost? Where did Assad end up when he lost Syria?
Moscow.
He ended up in Moscow in the warm care of the Russians. Where is Nicolas Maduro possibly going to end up? In Moscow. In a nice, safe retirement. And so anything you want to say there, but pincers sometimes are tough to see, but
that would be pretty amazing. In a lot of the rhetoric that Maduro and Gustave Petro have been putting out is pretty based, and it's all anti-regime. It's all like calling out all the stuff that they're doing worldwide, calling out specific people, calling out specific partners, calling out specific actions that the State Department's doing that's obviously illegal. I did not see that. I didn't even bother to go pull clips from my last appearance. I know it was like a 4 hour.
It was too long. Yeah, I know. I can't clip our shows, but that's why it's good to have the Q show after us, because I have more of an eye on the clock now. We only go 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, I did pull clips from other shows I've done and takes I've done where I was keep an eye out to see if this guy's going to get if Maduro's going to be arrested or extracted or whatever as part of these operations.
So now you've got the seating there where Trump is I'll let him go, and the Russians are we'll take him.
Yeah. So. Well, here's what the British thing is really about. It's really about the fact that every blue country you see on here is the current British Commonwealth. This is the British Empire.
Yeah, Canada's not a real country, as we have argued many times on this show.
Yeah, this is official too. This is not speculation. This is according to the British government. This is the British Commonwealth, the British Empire, the blue, and one of those, of course, is Guyana, which is here in Venezuela, here right next to Venezuela. And as far as Venezuela is concerned, as far as Maduro specifically is concerned, the western half of Guyana is called, I think it's called Essequibo, something like that, and it's part of Venezuela. They've been saying that for years now. There've been lawfare cases about it, but this whole fight is about the giant oil belt off the coast of Guyana, which is shown right here. Here's
you guys remember the seeding that we've talked about or that you've seen in the news for the last year and change about how Maduro is moving in on Guyana and how there's all this controversy, right? This is exactly what Ghost is pointing out. These are British waters, according to them. These are empire waters.
And basically, as I understand it, it sounds like Trump put sanctions on Maduro in 2019 those sanctions are what got like the cases, the civil lawsuit cases that Maduro brought against the executives dropped in U.S. court, but they were picked up in Europe and then turned into criminal prosecutions. But the sanctions, he then went back and gave an exemption to Citgo. I think it was Citgo, the oil company, to pull oil out of the Stabroek block. That's like the big block. This is like the oil belt, like a graph of it. Here's Guyana, here's Venezuela. And so there have been all these lawfare suits where the oil companies effectively want the Guyanan government to dictate what happens here because they control that government. They don't control Venezuela. But Venezuela is saying, actually, all of these waters that you're claiming are Guyana. That's actually Venezuela. All of this actually belongs to us. And
this is why it's a war of stories, very literally, because the UK, the globalist media, is trying to just simply state something that is not true over and over again. So when Maduro asserts sovereign power in this region for the benefit of his people, they are going to frame it as an invasion, which should remind you of the Donbass and a million other templates that we've seen.
Yeah, and so here's this green region. This is where all the big oil belt runs like right through here from this. I think this is Trinidad and Tobago right here. And it runs just right here. And as of right now, Guyana is this yellow region, right? They claim it's the yellow region all the way down to where this pink region ends right here. They're saying, oh, all of this actually belongs to us. And what Maduro is saying is this yellow part of Guyana, which is Essequiba, that's what it's called, Essequiba, that's actually Venezuela. So he's saying, actually, this entire green thing, because of the way international law is written, you take a line and you draw it out 200 miles from the coast, I think is what it is. This all belongs to us. So actually, Guyana, you get this little red triangle, which is where none of the oil is, and nobody cares about that. Like, have fun with
get
that.
Fucked.
That's why in November 2023 we saw militias come out of Guyana and ride into eastern Venezuela and start destabilizing shit. It's all connected to this stuff.
Damn straight. And again, we could go on this a ton. I want to hit just a couple more quick things that are related to this in terms of other pincers. But yeah, again, like just we don't know exactly what's going on there, but I think hopefully we're putting a picture together of reframing maybe what's going on in the Caribbean. You know, and this is another thing where people in the truth community, myself included at times, talk about these trafficking networks, child trafficking. Epstein is this big dramatic narrative and all that. We're not going to have time to do that tonight. We've done that on all the shows. Anytime something is happening with carrier groups, with the United States military under Donald Trump, the truth community ties themselves into fucking Gordian knots about they're stopping this, they're stopping that, they're doing this, which is partly true. But the truth is way simpler than you think it is. And by the gravity of what's going on, are trafficking networks going to be stopped? Yes. That's what we're talking about. This goes back into the first topic of the show. When you go down these rabbit holes and all you do is look at drops and you don't try to map what they're actually saying in terms of the larger geopolitical map here, you don't understand the histories of these regions or what these networks even look like and how they're being dismantled. Everything becomes a magical, there's like this crime network in Venezuela that's got the children and we got to save the children. It's not a cartoon, okay? It's a transnational criminal cabal, a globalist network, and you got to understand how it works so then you can map what they're actually doing to stop it. And that, yeah, ending trafficking and that kind of stuff, that is one of the goals here. But this is way more about the multipolar war, the sovereign alliance, and a total reordering of the global superstructure than it is about stopping Jeffrey Epstein's network, which may or may not have even been what we were told it was, right? Like, this is the stuff that they don't want you talking about. They want you focusing on the shiny, the shiny laser pointer in the corner. So anyway, but on this note, the template that I just tried to lay out in terms of pincer move, Trump and Putin with Maduro in the middle, and by that I mean facilitating Maduro's exit stage left. Look who else is in the news. I'm just going to show 2 headlines here and want your reaction on these. So we got our boy al-Shara over here. Syria signs declaration to join a U.S.-led coalition to defeat ISIS terrorist group. Now, for the purposes of this episode, when you hear ISIS, when you hear Sinaloa, when you hear Medellin, it's all the same thing, right? These are various proxy groups of the globalist regime. They're all cartels. They're all terror cells. They are all funded and trained by the same disembodied globalist network, okay? So al-Shara, the very bad evil man who was installed into power in Syria following the retreat of Bashar al-Assad, which facilitated a Russian maneuver defense scenario and the U.S. Department of War carpet bombing ISIS strongholds in Syria with no casualties reported among Syrian troops or Russians. In other words, it was a pincer move, as we said in 2023. Now we've got al-Shara, the terrorist leader, quote unquote, of Syria, vowing to fight ISIS on behalf of a US-led coalition. And that's not where it ends. Because if you rewind to October 15th, I filed this one away, waiting for it to map. And then it did. Syria's Shara meets with the man who spent 9 years bombing him. Now, who do you think that was? Who was the guy he met with who spent 9 years bombing him? Why? That was our friend and our uncle, Vladimir Putin. And what did they announce? A joint coalition effort to root out extremist cells in the region. So in October, the neocon media tells you that the dastardly Russians are aligning themselves with Syria for dastardly reasons. And in November, Donald Trump's Department of War is now doing the same thing with the same person. So that's a guy that I'm looking at as an our boy. I think he's the Trevor Slarity Iron Man 3 reference. I think he's purely an actor installed in this situation. But I don't know, just how I kind of see it. Another interesting US-Russia pincer. That one may be separated by about a month in terms of the media narrative.
Yeah, and what's really funny about that is that, you know, the first country to sign an anti-terrorism cooperation agreement with us was Qatar. And that was at the sword dance. I think it happened in May of 2017. We signed an anti-terrorism or counterterrorism task force,
right?
Joint coalition. And then Tamim came to the White House in September of 17, and you know, they had a press conference about it. They talked about it, and Tamim said, "Hey, I just want to point out, like, Qatar is the first country to sign up for this." Qatar funded ISIS. Like, they created ISIS along with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, the State Department, Israel, Turkey. It was a big war chest they created. The defense minister from Qatar came out last year, I think, and did an interview where he confessed to all this. He said that they called it the Syria file. It was $2 trillion war chest to take out Assad. And they failed. And for 3 years they fought him, and then eventually Putin came in 2015. And once the Russians arrived, it was over.
Yeah.
So where did the information to kill these people, like to take out ISIS, come from? It probably came from a combination of Russian intelligence and the Qataris. The Qataris knew where all the bodies were buried because they created it. And then, you know, the good twin element was obviously working with Trump. And then the Russians were like your cousin's anecdote, were feeding us the intel of where they knew the bases were. Now, this guy, Shara, they call him now, Jelani is his original name. Yeah. And the reason they want to call him Jelani is because he's from the Golan Heights, and that's what Jelani means. And that just reminds everybody that he actually comes from Israel.
Yeah.
he's probably, there's a lot of speculation that he might be like Israeli born. He might even be an Israeli citizen. I've seen those digs. They're very compelling. He might be a Mossad like trained asset. And that would actually make a lot of sense if he were. I actually think he probably is. And what probably happened was that I imagine a conversation took place saying, hey, Donald Trump just got reelected president. You know what would really fuck up his plans for world peace would be if we were to restart, re-energize the Syrian civil war. Why don't we get a group of guys together? Who do we have from the Rolodex? Who can we call? Oh yeah, let's call that guy Jelani. Like he's been in a bunch of films for us, right? He was one of those head choppers from back in the day. Let's get him out here, give him some money, give him some guys, and let's go roll on Assad and start a war. And then
Assad just opened the door and left.
Yeah, Assad he told everyone to lay down the arms, said, "Okay,
maneuver
it's your
defense.
country now. See you later." And no war. You could imagine how different the world would look right now if there was a major war happening in Syria between.
And again, that facilitated a total spur of the moment U.S. bombing campaign that was put together in about 10 hours. We were told. Where they struck ISIS strongholds in Syria as the Syrian army and the Russians left the area.
Yeah, exactly. And so this guy comes in. Trump immediately comes out and awards credit to Turkey. He says this is Erdogan's greatest success. Congratulations, people have been trying to do this for 2,000 years, and you finally did it. Turkey finally conquered Syria. What a tremendous day. And now all that's coming full circle because we have this fight over who's going to control Syria. Is it going to be Israel or is it going to be Turkey? And Trump has made it very clear he's backing Turkey. He's backing Turkey. He's given them the nuclear deal. He's going to give them a military deal. And obviously he says he wants Turkish troops in Syria. He also wants Turkish troops in Gaza, for the reasons I said before, because they are NATO, and that would be Article 5. Now, I think, again, let's go back to the very beginning of what we were talking about. Why does Trump push the neocon crap? Why does he sound like an insufferable neocon when he talks about this stuff? Why does he talk about Maduro this way? Why does he talk about Putin this way? Why does he talk about XYZ this way? And I think it's a matter of him leaning into what they want to do. Rather than fight against the current, fight against Lindsey Graham, fight against all these people, John Bolton and all them, he says, yeah, okay, let's do it. Let's go invade Syria. Let's go invade Venezuela. Let's go do whatever retarded thing it is you wanted to do. And that helps get all the pieces in place. And then all you have to do is adjust a few little things here and there. And it goes from a regime change operation to take out the cartel operation.
Yep. Damn straight. And it's again why I think sometimes we get our wires get crossed when we're talking about our boys and Sovereign Alliance and everything. When you're talking about Jolani and I'm mentioning Trevor Slattery and Iron Man 3, it's not to say these are good guys. It's to say, much like what I see as the Zelensky template, they are pigeonholed into this theater, and they're basically getting rug pulled. And some of them, I think, probably sign on the dotted line. It's like, hey, you're fucked. You've got the Russians on one side, you've got the Americans on the other side, and you've got nothing backing you. You've got a bunch of bureaucrats in Brussels and the UK and Berlin backing you with no kinetic power projection. And oh, by the way, the only kinetic power projection the regime has, because the open secret here that everybody in this audience should know is that the kinetic power projection of the globalist cartel has been the United States military. And that's where Trump and devolution come in. They don't have that anymore. They can't get the US military committed in any of these theaters. So that sword of Damocles is not hanging over any of these conflicts anymore. So what does the regime have in terms of kinetic power projection? Cartels, terror cells, ISIS, and beyond. And those are all the ones being dismantled. They're being dismantled in Syria. They're being dismantled in Venezuela. They're being dismantled in Mexico. They're being dismantled in Ukraine. And in all of these theaters, you've got Sovereign Alliance players on either side of the pincer. And that's what, if you're listening to neocon media who's telling you the Russians are the bad guys and Maduro's the bad guy, etc., you're going to completely miss all the actual operations that are going on to root out these cells and destroy them.
Yeah, and here's from a few days ago. RT posted this. This is the guy that apparently, according to the State Department, is living in fear because the people hate him so much. He's widely hated in his country. The people despise him. They're just waiting. They're praying for the day that the United States is going to come overthrow him so they can finally live in peace and justice. Show me one U.S. political figure, including Donald Trump, who can walk into a crowd like this safely.
Right.
And literally just walk through a crowd the way he's walking. I mean, he probably has security around him, but you can't tell who they are. Like, you don't see giant security guards pushing people out of the way, make way for him, right? I mean, anyone could walk up right here with a sharp object and stick it in his side.
Yeah.
And yet that's not happening. So there's a lot to be said about that. Lindsey Graham would never, ever, ever do something like this in the safest place in the United States. He wouldn't do something like this.
Damn straight. And one more little theater we'll hit just on our way out of here is just the Ukraine one, little button on Ukraine. Nothing huge here, but sort of in keeping with the theme tonight of the Russians and some of the stuff we've laid out. You guys will remember I wrote an article a few weeks ago called Pebble and Avalanche, and that was largely about Hungary and Slovakia. That I think that they are putting NATO in a tough spot narratively when it comes to Ukraine. They are the terrestrial within the EU, within NATO pushback on the NATO war machine when it comes to Ukraine. And well, that take is aging pretty well. So we've got from Thursday, Ukraine is ruled by a wartime mafia network with countless ties to Zelensky. This was Viktor Orban. So he's using this as all the things we were telling you 4 years ago about Zelensky and these networks now is like mainstream news somehow. Hungary and Slovakia are, of course, jumping all over this, while Germany is reeling. And the whole premise that I laid out was that the pressure on NATO is going to come from within NATO. And the continued revelations of Ukrainian terror cells and a mafia network, which is what Ukraine is and has been since its inception, because it's not a real country and never has been, many such cases, was going to put pressure on Germany, who are supposed to be the kinetic arm of the regime there, but they're very weak. So they can't actually do shit. They don't want to do shit. They want nothing to do with war with Russia. So we have German Chancellor tells Zelensky young men should return and defend their homeland. This is him responding to Orban, and it's him responding to the rise of the Alternative for Germany party and nationalist sentiment within Germany. And what are the German people really, really angry about? Ukrainian refugees in their country. They want them out. They want them back in Ukraine. And with Germany starting to get a little bit gun shy about backing the war effort, you can see what we were talking about a couple of months ago when Donald Trump said he was going to send the weapons to the EU and to NATO. He wasn't backing the Ukrainian war effort. He was putting NATO in a pincer and telling them, if you want to fight Russia, you fight Russia. And let's see how your people like that. So Macron blinked first, and then to tie a button on it, to tie a bow on it, the Kremlin trolls Zelensky after Berlin urges Ukraine to take back fighting age males. And they said, we've got, what do we have here? Ukrainians, this was Mertz. Ukrainians should serve their own country. They are needed there. In other words, get out. And then we have Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova said to Mertz, Zelensky, take Ukrainians back from Germany. Zelensky, I lack the tools to get them killed in large quantities. If you send more weapons and money, we will close borders and further lower the conscription age. Otherwise, expect a greater influx. So this is, and what is this all leading?
If you send me more money, I'll stop flooding your country with immigrants.
Yep. And what is this leading up to? We told you the ending at the beginning. Russia is still open to Trump-backed peace talks, but Ukraine must open the door. So anyway, bit of a pincer to to close on there if you have thoughts on Ukraine. I thought specific. We've been talking about Ukraine for years, but I thought specifically you've now got the Germans really being put in the crosshairs from a narrative perspective, and they are not doing well.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll take it one step further. Here's this was just posted by RT. U.S. and Russia actively discussing settlement of the Ukraine conflict. So I mean, we're there. Yeah. I mean, Trump already said last week that it's probably still going to happen. It's going to be Budapest. That's Trump's choice. They said it was your mom who picked Budapest, but it was actually Trump. Right. Putin came out and clarified that. So I think we are going to get a Trump-Putin meeting. I think it's probably going to happen like before the end of the year. Because what's funny is that the Finnish president said that it's not going to happen until what do you say? It's right here. No Ukraine ceasefire this year, according to the Finnish president, because the Finnish president, of course, would be the one to make these decisions, right? Yeah.
The Baltic states.
Yeah, the Baltic states. So, I think that actually this is going to be who's that famous guy? Jim Cramer. This is like a Jim Cramer call. It's like, okay, now I'm certain that there's going to be a Ukraine ceasefire before the end of the year because this moron says it's the total opposite.
And if you're looking for sort of, why have I been focusing so much on Hungary lately? Well, there's the Budapest thing you mentioned. Orban has been very vocal and everything. I think, the EU, hopefully the EU ceases to exist and NATO ceases to exist when we're done with this. But Europe does not cease to exist, right? The awakening needs to spread worldwide. We need to retake this shit. We need a multipolar world. We don't need Europe to devolve into a new dark ages. So what do I think is going on here with nations like Hungary and some of these leaders in Slovakia? I think we are seeing the cultivation of a new era of European leadership on the back of this Ukraine saga, which is really about Russia. It's really about the unification with the West. And it's about the purging of the, stronghold, arguably, of globalist mafia cartels and trafficking, which is in Ukraine. These are where all the Soviet oligarchs and the Prussian oligarchs fled to in the 90s. So that's kind of the heart of their power. We need a new era of leaders. And I think that Orban and Fico are really being primed in the public mind, because the public European mind, as it gets crazier and crazier, as the German government and as the French government and maybe even the Polish government are escalating and escalating with Putin, the voices of reason in Europe is Hungary and Slovakia. So I think they are going to have an outsized role in piloting the future of Europe. And I think that's part of why Trump and Putin are kind of elevated. They don't need Budapest, to your point. They don't need that. They don't need somebody to broker the talks. The talks are already done between Trump and Putin. I think that they are actually using these talks to elevate Viktor Orban and Robert Fico and saying, like, these are the guys that are getting this done for the rest of you fucking stupid Europeans who fell hook, line, and sinker into this globalist trap that we funded in the U.S. and we defended in the U.S. the whole time, because these European nations are fucking meaningless, and it's time they remembered themselves. And I think the only nations who have, from a leadership perspective, is Hungary and Slovakia.
The Magyars, okay? The Magyars are going to come in and save Europe. Yeah, and you're probably right. They're all like Europe. They're all in on the take. They're all they're part of the cartel, like Brussels and all that. I mean, the EU is. Nigel Farage said it 15 years ago. He said that the whole point of the EU is to destroy European sovereignty and in the European nation state, which is effectively what's happened. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing the Finnish president come out and say Ukraine is not going to get to decide anything for itself before the end of the year. Yeah. So I did just see a lot of people are texting me this clip. We should watch this 1 minute clip because it looks like Trump has weighed in on this whole situation. So I have not seen this clip yet.
with Fuentes.
With Fuentes and Tucker. It's like he's waited. I have not heard this clip yet, so we're gonna watch it together.
We had some great interviews with Tucker Carlson. but you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide. The mayor of New York, I will say, would like to meet with us and we'll work something out. But he would like to come to Washington and meet, and we'll work something out. We want to see everything work out well for New York.
You yourself had dinner with Nick Fuentes at Mar-a-Lago a few years ago. What role should he play in the conservative movement?
Well, I didn't know he was coming, and he was with, as you know, somebody, Kanye. And Kanye asked if he could have dinner, and he brought Nick. I didn't know Nick at the time. And he did. He came, and along with a few other people. He brought a few people with him. Meeting people, talking to people, like for somebody like Tucker, that's what they do. People are controversial. Some are, some aren't. I'm not controversial, so I like it that way.
I love it.
Speaking of our boy mom,
yeah.
like Chris, like hat tip Chris Paul, our boy mom.
We'll work something out. Yep,
dude. I mean, that was the clip right there.
That's clearly an our boy.
Like he looked right in the camera. He says he wants to come to the White House, and you know what? We're gonna work something out. I think Mom Donnie 100% is our boy for sure.
And what's he lead that with on Tucker and Fuentes? Regardless of what Ghost and I said earlier tonight, we always lead everything by saying, like, I don't know. I don't know where Fuentes comes from. I don't know his heart. I'm just looking at the public narrative and assessing threats, right? People could do the same thing with us. They should. But what does Trump lead there with? The people have to decide. The people have to see. The people have to be involved in the discussion. And man, that has been the theme of what we've been trying to push at Badlands. Argue, fight, sift. That is what we think Donald Trump wants. And now he's telling you himself. Don't be a pussy about the arguments. Don't be a pussy. I'm not saying Nick Fuentes shouldn't have a platform. He should have a fucking platform.
Yeah.
And you should pay attention to it.
Yes.
And you should see what he's saying. And you should see what you agree with and what you don't. You should see a sit down between him and Tucker. You should decide for yourself if you think these guys are earnest or if you think they're trying to op you, if you think one of them is and one of them isn't. That's what you should see. That's what you want. It's not everything's part of the plan, trust the plan, shut the fuck up, Patriots will take care of it. As Donald Trump is telling you in that clip, the people should see, the people should decide, the people should be involved in the conversation. So what a great button he sets us up with. And one more button before we get out of here. I'm going to shill myself. I wrote an article published today called The Temple Trap. I was quite tickled by Trump's Phantom of the Opera post last night, which, yes, I compared to Bruce Wayne. I think that's the aesthetic here. So I wrote a whole kind of thing about that. By the way, I was named as an official QAnon influencer, guys, by NPR.
I saw that.
So I'm in. So now what are you going to do about all the people saying I was anti-Q or some shit, despite that never being the case?
You're basically the face of the Q movement, actually.
I pretty much am the drops now, along with some other Badlanders. So there's that. So I wrote The Temple Trap, and this was just various readings of the Epstein situation recently. And, we're never going to know the full truth of it, probably. But just exploring different angles like we did tonight of it being a trap. These are things, Chris has talked about this, John's talked about this, we've all talked about this. So I tried to put that spin on it from a Batman perspective. And, and I'm going to be a bit of a faggot tonight.
Yeah.
Donald Trump posted during the show. Donald Trump posted this during the show.
What does that say?
I don't know, guys. As I said Friday night aboard Air Force One to the fake news media, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide. It's time to move on from this Democrat hoax perpetrated by the radical left lunatics in order to deflect from the great success of the Republican Party, including our recent victory on the Democrat shutdown. The Department of Justice has already turned over tens of thousands of pages, blah, 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 blah. He talks about all the Epstein stuff we've seen. You guys can look this up later. But then he says, nobody cared about Jeffrey Epstein when he was alive, and if the Democrats had anything, they would have released it before our landslide election victory. Some members of the Republican Party are being used, and we can't let that happen. Let's start talking about the Republican Party's record-setting achievements and not fall into the Epstein trap, which is actually a curse on the Democrats, not us. Make America great again. And yeah, I'm stretching it, man. I'm stretching it all the way to earlier this day the temple trap, talking about Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know. I'm just saying. I mean, it's probably nothing, but dude, I don't think Trump is telling you that the whole Epstein op is fake. And the whole point of my article was that it is a trap, though. And, mileage varies on that.
We just did a 3-hour show and literally didn't even talk about the fact that that Laura Loomer is openly advocating for the U.S. to defund the Israeli military. And the entire reason she's doing that is because she says the Israeli military should continue killing as many people as possible. But this way it won't damage President Trump. And this way the U.S. can't tell Israel to stop whenever it wants to. But Israel needs to keep killing people ad nauseum. I think that is laugh out loud funny and kind of hilarious because it's like she wants the same thing that I want just for the complete opposite reason.
Damn straight. I gotta get rants and a couple boosts, so I'm going over a little bit. I will raid the Q show afterwards. Tom Terrific 54. The world is a ball of confusion for $25. Thank you, Tom. We're trying to make sense of it. Mama K, thanks for what you do. Thank you. Peyton Pooh, I agree, Ghost. If we had a voice, use it. If we have means, sponsor someone. If you're a warrior, fight peacefully. Pray always. Love my Badlands. Badlandia.
Damn right. Peyton.
Sleep State, I've worked with tons of Indian and Chinese immigrant workers. Only 10% of them were above average. Keith O'Higgins, Nick has an army of young groypers embedded in Turning Point USA, most GOP congressional administration offices, a series of spies influencing the influencers downstream. Who knows? And he says the U.S. Secret Service settled the pronunciation controversy when in Colombia it's boner fetus. Boner fetus. Nancy K. Reese, the protests in Mexico look organic to me. The signs are homemade. They aren't carrying identical equipment like the people in Oregon. Probably true.
Interesting.
Keith O'Higgins, will Tara Reid? Yeah. Will Tara Reid and Edward Snowden ever leave Russia to come home? Who knows? And there was a couple of boosts here. Squirrel447 sent $100 over. Much appreciate that. Finally able to catch a show live. Always love everyone's take on the world at large. Thanks for the hard work. Thank you, Squirrel. And guys, as always, you can go to badlandsmedia.tv/boost if you're watching on replay, if you want to support any of the shows here specifically. Puzzler Cat sent a couple over. Thank you both for helping to clarify what I've been seeing between the groups and their way of thinking. It now makes sense. You are good translators. Much appreciated, Puzzler.
Appreciate that.
All right, guys. Ghost, what do you got going on this week?
Damn, dude. We also didn't talk about the fact that this is going to be one of the biggest weeks ever because MBS is coming to the White House on Tuesday, and it's going to be a motherfucking jamboree because Trump says we're going to have MBS's coming out party on Tuesday night. He's hosting a black tie party. Sounds like the White House is going to broadcast, maybe. If they do, I'm doing a black tie stream. So join me Tuesday night, maybe. But if not, we're definitely going to be covering it all day on Badlands. We'll be Badlands Daily with CanCon in the morning. He'll pull up in the morning, and then we'll do lunch, and then we'll do the afternoon session, whatever it is. That'll be Geopolitics with Ghost. So Tuesday, MBS, and then Wednesday they're going to do a U.S.-Saudi investment forum where they're going to go in detail and announce all the small little deals they're doing.
They're going to reveal that Epstein created Bitcoin.
Yeah. That's when Epstein's probably going to walk out and be like, I have been Japanese this entire time, actually.
Right.
He's like, I'm not even the Jewish-looking guy. I'm actually Japanese.
He pulls his mask off and it's Shinzo Abe.
He's an 85-year-old Japanese man.
All right, man. Thanks for joining the show, Ghost. I think we figured everything out. Thank you guys for watching. Please hit the thumbs up button. Watch Q After Hours. I'll raid you guys over there. You can just click over there and be adults about it if you want. Alpha, Brad, and Josh are over there. I will outro with the intro. Next weekend, we aren't 100% yet, but I may have one of Ghost's co-conspirators, Matt Ehret, on the narrative. He is currently in Russia.
Yes.
Taking everything I worked for and hobnobbing with probably my Uncle Vlad. And it's bullshit, all right? It's total bullshit. And I'm going to call him out to his face for that. But we'll probably talk about some interesting stuff too. Anyway, as I always say, the war is a story. The story is a war. Act accordingly. We'll see you guys next week.
we were sleeping. I've been sleeping. I've been turning away from a truth I wanted not to face. There is a wound that won't heal at the center of the galaxy. There is a darkness reaching like rust into everything around us. We let it grow, and now it's here.
How many men have you killed, Malone?
I don't know.
50? 100? Countless.
Countless has a nice ring to it.
And how many lives have you saved?
500,000. Population of King's Landing. Tell me if your precious Randy commanded you to kill your own father and stand by while thousands of men, women, children burned alive, would you have done it? Would you have kept your oath then?
Our time has come. We prepared. We grew stronger. Were you rested in your cradle of power? You were trusted to lead the Republic. But you were deceived. You assumed no force could challenge you. And now, finally, we have returned.
The visions are clear now. I see possible futures all at once. Our enemies are all around us. And in so many futures they prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through.
It's not a prophecy. It's a story that you keep telling, but it's not their story, it's yours. They deserve to be led by one of their own. What your people did to this world is heartbreaking.
We gave them something to hope for.
That's not hope! We have survived by hiding from them, by running from them. But they are the gatekeepers. They are guarding all the doors, they are holding all the keys, which means that sooner or later, someone is going to have to fight them.
I wish none of this had happened. So do all who live to see such time, but that is not for them to decide. All we will have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us.
Forgive me. I did not see. I have failed you all.
In full brain. Capture armor. I do not know what strength is like that. But I swear to you, I will not let the White City fall. Our people fail. Our people. Our people.
I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. And now it begins.
No. Now it ends.